Hello, hello, hello. What is going on? It is about to be episode 3 of the VGB Show, and here he is. I'm Plush Ebola, and there's TTV Sub-Zero. What's going on, man?
Hello, how's it going? On
What's good?
Plushy's channel again. Hello.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
I've
How are
just
you?
seen I've just seen the giant Avit on your
Oh,
on
yeah.
your stream. Oh god, look at the state of it.
It's great, isn't it?
Avit. It's
Avi.
lovely. It's lovely. How are you
How?
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I've just been chilling. It's the weekend, so that
Hell
means
yeah.
hanging out, playing some video games, and, chatting with you. My favorite part of the weekend.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. So, what's been up? How are you? What you been playing lately? What's been on the list?
Well, I am good for a start
Mm-hmm.
because I have finished work now for Christmas, and
Ooh,
that means that I have 3 weeks off.
three
So I
weeks.
am very happy, very happy. 3 weeks.
That's a
I
long
know it's
time.
unheard of.
That's a
I
long
know
time.
that's unheard of for me. So
So,
yeah,
what
it's
you gonna
cool.
dive into? What you got planned for the big holiday?
Well, as some of you may know,
Mm.
um, I got a PS5,
Oh my
so I have
god,
been
here he
playing.
goes. Yeah.
I got it from a scalper,
uh,
but yeah, unfortunately. But I only paid about £50 over the odds for it. I think we discussed this last week anyway.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've been playing pretty much exclusively PS5 games because of it, trying stuff out, seeing what the PS5 can do. Um, so yeah, I've been playing all sorts of games. I think we discussed that I played Ratchet and Clank
Yeah.
last week, Rift Apart, which was very, very cool. Very, very cool game. Finished
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, also was playing Spider Man, but me being the
Ooh.
absolute idiot that I am, I bought the PS4 version.
It's
But
weird how
still,
they released that though, because like yes, they remastered Spider-Man for
mm,
PlayStation 5, but you can't buy it off of
yeah.
the PlayStation Store. It's just not available digitally or physically, really. The
So
only
I think you
way
had to,
Yeah, the
yeah,
only way to
you,
access it was buying the like deluxe edition of Miles Morales,
mm,
and it came with a code for the original game remastered.
ugh.
It's just a weird way of doing that. You would think just put it up for $20 for people to buy as a standalone purchase, and
Yeah, definitely.
be done with it, make some money.
So I know my housemate Tom Donny Bench,
Yep.
shout out. He actually he bought the Miles Morales Deluxe Edition and whatever. So he was able to play the Spider-Man remastered version.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, well, I've got Miles Morales here. If I ever want to play that, then I can just play it. Stick the disc in. But yeah, like you said, I went on the store for Spider-Man, and it was just the PS4 version. So it's like, okay, well. So I thought I made a mistake, but it sounds like I hadn't.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's not your
so
fault.
I played that. Very, very cool game. Very, very cool.
Yeah, I got to watch a little bit of you play it, and I said it jokingly at the time, but it's kind of only half a joke. I said, "Come on, how come all your big fancy PC games don't look this good?" Like, I mean, that game looks really good for a PlayStation 4 game, right?
I couldn't believe it was a PS4 game. Honestly, I couldn't. Like, it's those console generations that you get, and you get the beginning of the console generation where games look just a bit of a step up from the previous generation, and then at the end of the generation, like, the developers learn all the tips and tricks to make games look really good, and Spider-Man is one of those things. I'm not sure when it came out in terms of the PS4 generation. It must have been towards the end, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, it was definitely after the PS4 Pro release. Was that game released in 2018? I want to say. I'm not sure.
I think so. Yeah.
But either way, it looks really good. And Insomniac, I think, are at the forefront of pushing their engine and just taking the most advantage of the software or the hardware really available. Because between the Spider-Man games, like, fully utilizing the PlayStation 4 to Ratchet and Clank being one of the only PlayStation 5 like actual exclusive, not cross-generational titles, they really know what they're doing, and it shows. It definitely shows. So what are your impressions, or I mean, what are your lasting feelings after completing Spider-Man? Because you didn't just complete it, you got the platinum in it too, right?
Hell yeah, boy. Hell yeah, I got the platinum. So I got that platinum itch again. I don't know if anybody else loves getting platinums, but I do. Within reason, I'm not going to platinum every game because that's just ridiculous. But Spider-Man is like one of those games that's like the perfect platinum. So the best way to do a platinum trophy is to basically make the player explore every aspect of your game. So, in Spider-Man, for example, there's little mini games with like scientific mini games with circuit boards and things like that, which you can do. And it's like, right, one of the requirements to get the platinum trophy is to do all of those side missions, and it's like they really wanted to say, oh, by the way, there's this other aspect to our game, this little mini game that you can do, well, let's put a trophy in for it. There's bad ways of doing trophies, and I think Spider-Man is that perfect list where it's like, right, do everything in the game that you can. You can do it at any point that you want as well. You don't have to go back to the start and do it all over again,
right?
So yeah, but in terms of Spider-Man, like, it helps that it's a really, really fun game. It's Spider-Man, so you expect the swinging, you expect the fighting, lots of gadgetry, and that's what it is really. It's just like this beautiful looking open world game where you can swing around it, which is the swinging mechanics and the momentum that you get from it is just great. It's just great. And it's actually more nuanced than you actually think. You've got to have something that's higher up than you, like a building or a tree or whatever, to actually swing from it. So if you're just out in open air, then you can't swing. You're just going to dive down towards the ground. But when you do that and you do latch onto something, then you get that real quick feeling of traversal, like, and flow, resistance. And it's just fun to get around. Like, if you have an open world game and it's fun to get around, then already half the battle is done.
That's something
and that's Spider-Man
too that I think Insomniac does well, is kind of basing a lot of their gameplay around momentum and speed, because I feel like that's something that they carried over into Spider-Man from Sunset Overdrive,
Mm,
where it was very like, I think in Sunset Overdrive it was like if you were moving you'd get like damage boosts and like all kinds
mm,
of stuff. You'd get swarmed by like the zombie monsters or whatever in that game, and
yeah.
um, yeah,
They
they're
had an
excellent.
interesting way of doing that as well because it was kind of like artificial in terms of if you were gliding along telephone wires and things like that to fight, which you're supposed to do, they encourage you to do that.
Mhm.
Then the enemies will miss you more.
Right.
They'll do less damage. You'll do more damage. If you actually go down on the ground and just you're stuck out in an open area, just on boots on the ground, then the enemies will do way more damage to you. They'll 100% hit you every time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of artificial in what they did, but they're trying to make players to say, right, okay, get up in the sky, jump around, swing around,
Right.
grind around, and that's the whole premise of the game. But like I said, like you said, then it's when you're going around from point to point in the open world,
Mhm.
actually getting around by grinding on telephone wires on the side of buildings, jumping from building to building at very fast speed and very good flow. Like it's just fun getting from side mission to side mission or main mission to main mission. It's like
Yeah.
and then that's it. Then it's not like one of these games like The Witcher where you have to get your horse and ride
Mhm.
around, or Red Dead Redemption 2 or GTA 5.
Yeah.
Where they sort of compensate for that with like a very beautiful world, like very atmospheric worlds, whereas these games are just like getting about and getting about
A
fast.
lot of open world games, and I've had this complaint before. It just they're so wide and open that they almost feel empty, or the actual act of like moving from mission to mission is it just takes way too long. Something like I feel like Valhalla had that problem. Assassin's Creed,
Mm, yeah.
where it was like, yeah, it was a beautiful world to look at, but it's just not fun to move around in it.
Mm.
And
Oh, if if I if I went from Spider-Man to an Assassin's Creed game,
yeah.
I would just be like, right, climb to the top of a building, and then I'd just jump off again, expecting to just swing through like the streets of Vienna or Venice or whatever, like the
Mm.
Ezio game. I'd just be like, it just won't compute in my head. I can't play an Assassin's Creed game for a long time now, I think.
The other good thing about Spider-Man, well, a couple things. Well, one was the story is fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the story in that game um, is better than some of the Spider-Man movies, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which goes a long way because that means that the writing is top notch, the action was top notch, and on top of that, the actual performances were really well done. Um,
Mm,
so that's a huge sticking point for that game.
mm.
But I think that when you played it, right, and I played it in a really similar way, didn't you feel like this kind of I don't want to say, how do I describe it? Basically, the way that they introduce the side missions in that game is they
Mm.
kind of um, introduce like a faction or an activity itself, and they give you all of them all at once, all scattered around the map. And at
Yeah.
the same time, they'll show you the next story mission,
Mm.
and you don't want to progress the story until you hit every single one of those nodes on the map, right?
Yeah. It's I really appreciate what they did as well because they didn't go right. Here's everything that you can do at once in
Mm-hmm.
terms of every single type of side like mission or collectible or whatever. They're just like, right, okay, this makes sense in context of the story. Like all of these thugs now are out and they're established within the city, so you can go to their bases all around the city. But they
Mm.
do unlock them all at once. So you'll do a story mission where it's like, the introductory mission, and then it's like, oh, Spider-Man mentions that he's left his backpacks from high school all around the city.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, okay, right, there's backpacks everywhere now,
Right.
so let's go and collect them. But they do a good thing as well in like it's not just a collectible, which is boring to go around and pick up, but I've kind of got this compulsion to do it as well. but
Yeah.
each backpack has like a bit of memorabilia in there, which
Yep.
makes reference to old Spider-Man comics and
With that delicious
films and
lore. We love it.
yeah,
We love the
yeah,
lore.
and other Marvel things as well. Like there's references to Daredevil and
Yep.
the Avengers and things. So yeah, it's good that they had collectibles which reward you with a little nice little touch like that.
Yeah, definitely. Are you interested? So I don't know if you've seen it, but Insomniac announced. Obviously, there's Spider-Man 2 that they're working
Mm-hmm.
on, which we'll get to that in a second. But they also announced that they're working on a Wolverine game.
Mm.
How do you feel about that? Like, what do you want to see out of a Wolverine game, and how do you think it will uh, differ in the experience of playing as Spider-Man? Do you want it to be grittier or gory? Do you want it to be like
Mm.
M-rated or and it looks like it's
Yeah,
gonna be kind of doing the old Logan story route where he's a little bit older, a little more grizzled. He's got his
yeah,
cowboy hat and
yeah.
stuff.
I think, like, first off, Insomniac doing it, I kind of trust them to do what's best for, an IP like Wolverine.
Mm.
The Wolverine games have always been quite good as well, where I've always enjoyed them. But yeah, I agree. It needs to be more gritty. There needs to be like dismemberment and stuff. You can't have a Wolverine game with those like claws and not have your enemies fall to pieces when you slash them. It's
So you
like
think it'll be
impossible.
an M-rated, a more mature experience from inside, which I feel like it's been a
I think
while
it's gonna
since
be.
they.
Yeah.
Yes, it's. I think like, did you ever play the Resistance games on
Yes.
PS3?
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
like them, or and like
Not really.
one
No.
specific one? Any of them? No.
I was more of a Killzone kind of guy.
Yeah. Oh, I liked Killzone as well, but I think Resistance One was a launch game for PS3, and it had kind
Mm.
of a lot of those launch game problems. Where it felt a little more like a tech demo than an actual, like, I don't know, full out well developed experience.
Mm.
But as the series went on, I think the one thing that Insomniac has always nailed is really interesting, cool, wacky guns that do weird things.
Mm.
And as the Resistance series went on, I think that got pretty good. But I feel like that's the last time they really did like a mature rated game. I think Sunset Overdrive. No, I think that was only rated teen, but that had some like
Mm.
potty
It
humor
was
jokes and
very
stuff in it. It
Yeah, it
was
was very cartoony, and it
yeah,
was like there was a few bits that were a bit like, ugh, it wasn't gore, but it was people turning into these horrible like gloopy monsters and
right.
things. But I
Mm.
think with Wolverine, you've got to make it you know, uh, quite well. It's got to be grittier, right? I mean,
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're going for the character when he is a bit more grittier, a bit more chiseled, sort of thing, and it's like, um, I don't know how an open. I assume that they're talking about it being open world, right?
Yes,
Is
I think it
is
is supposed to be open world. Again, it looks much
Yeah.
more like a rustic environment, like we're in like a western town, a western setting. It looks like it's like
Mm.
set in like a desert kind of area. So
They got some challenges there to make it both interesting and make it so you can move around the map in an interesting way as well.
yeah, because I mean
Maybe the
Wolverine isn't really necessarily known for that same sense of movement that
Yeah.
Spider-Man is. You're not going to be swinging around the world and stuff like that. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm
You
curious.
think of Batman and Superman and all of these kind of heroes, even if you look at like things like Thor and stuff, they'll be flying around the map like there's no tomorrow sort of thing. But
Yeah.
Wolverine is kind of like grounded. So
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to make him super agile and he can jump around like a lot or whatever, but that's the as far as it goes really. Unless he's got some super gadgets that let him fly around like Batman, like
Yeah,
gliders
but
and things.
he's
I
never
don't know.
had stuff like that. I could see
Yeah,
him
yeah.
like, maybe having some sort of wall climb with his claws or something. But he's a chunkier character. He's more
Hmm.
about being, yeah, level
Well,
footed on,
so,
on on level ground.
Sunshine just said Wolverine takes the bus.
I mean, yeah,
Well, they might. That's like I know it's a joke, but maybe it's going to be more like a GTA kind of thing. Maybe because
yeah.
Logan, let's say, who's driving that truck around in the film and all that sort of stuff. It's like maybe it's going to be more GTA where you can get into vehicles.
To be
And
fair, Spider-Man takes the subway,
he
so
does, yeah, when you fast travel,
yeah,
and that's hilarious as well. That's so
yeah.
hilarious.
Those little cutscenes, and I know you played the PS4 version, but actually in the PS5 version, if you go to fast travel, the loading is so fast, it'll go to that load screen of Spider-Man on the train for just like it fades to black, fades in, you see him, and then it fades right back to black. Like it must last less than a second. It's ridiculous that it's even still in there.
I love how they have that tongue-in-cheek approach, and the whole game is quite tongue-in-cheek as well as like kind of more serious moments. But that tongue-in-cheek approach of like you're fast traveling in a Spider-Man game where the map is huge, right? So it takes quite a while for you to swing from one end to the other, so you can fast travel. But then it's just like it just doesn't make sense. Spider-Man's on the subway and the little loading screen when you fast travel, and people are looking at him weird, like and he's there on his phone, just leant against one of the handhold poles, like,
Yeah.
and he's just there, like, and I just love that. It's like, right, we need fast travel in this game, but it doesn't quite make sense. So let's just embrace it and just be like, just everybody on the train, like, why Spider-Man on the train?
One of my favorites was you were streaming it for a little bit over Discord last night, and when you beat the game, you unlock one of the suit options is just Spider-Man in his underwear. It's like him, he has his mask on, and then he's just got boxers on, and that's pretty much it. And you did a fast travel where you were in it showed you in the subway, like on your phone, and it keeps whatever costume you have equipped, so it's just you pretty much naked, like standing there on your phone, and there's a dude looking at you like, what the fuck is this? Like, I love it.
But it's literally like that. Like the attention to detail is so good. Like it's funny, but it's also quite serious in places. It's got all of your if you're a Spider-Man fan and you haven't played this game, you've got to play it because it's got all of your favorite Spider-Man villains. It's got all of your favorite Spider-Man characters. Obviously, there's MJ and all this sort of stuff. It shows like the rise of Miles Morales as well. Like all through the main story. Like
some fan service really in there, but I think all the characters get in like pretty good arcs. They even you even get to play a little bit as everyone. Like, I think there's a couple sections where you play as Miles, right? And a couple sections where you play as Mary Jane. And
those are the bits I hated so much.
Yeah. Everyone complains about the Mary Jane stealth sections. But, I thought it was an interesting change of pace, but maybe didn't gel with the rest of the experience. I mean, Spider-Man had a few stealthy approaches to missions. Some of them are better taken on, and so I think they might even force you.
But you have a tool set, right?
Yeah.
Spider-Man. If you're doing a stealth mission, you have all of your moves where you can find a guy who's alone and you can string him up and splat him against a wall and it's very much like the Batman Arkham games, right? So those stealth sections I really like, but the MJ/Miles stealth sections, obviously they haven't got any powers, so what can they do? But yeah, it's literally just them sneaking around. There's vision cones, there's lures and stuff, and it's kind of, I don't know, it goes from such fast-paced combat and flow of traversal and things, very, very fast-paced game to like, oh, suddenly now I have to wait for a guard to go on his patrol route down a corridor and whatever. The best thing about those is when Mary Jane found a taser, so then you can go up behind people and actually stick it in their back and take them out. But yeah, I mean, no, it's great that you can play as MJ, but I just wish it was like kind of. I don't really know what they could do with her besides from stealth sections. As a journalist as well. It's like that's the only thing that they can really
sneak
do
around
with her.
and take pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was interesting. Irk mentioned that he really likes the arc between Doc Ock and Spider-Man in that game, and
hell yeah, man.
that's what good. I mean. Like every character gets like fleshed out really well, and I just think it's one of the best Spider-Man just pieces of media out there. It's
Yeah.
really good. And on top of that, well, after experiencing the game, right? What do you hope to see out of Spider-Man 2? Obviously, you didn't play Miles Morales yet, but I
Yeah.
will say that it is very much the same game, okay?
Yeah.
Just with, obviously a different story, and the story that it tells is equally as good as regular Spider-Man game.
Mm.
But in terms of traversal, the map itself is the same map, just with a snow overlay,
Yeah.
and obviously there's different powers and stuff that
Mm.
Miles uses, and I think there's even a little more emphasis on stealth in Miles Morales because he's got the whole invisible spider power thing or whatever. So
He also has his
expect that
hacking
to.
app as well, doesn't he? Right?
What's that?
His hacking app that he has.
Yeah.
So that's in the original game where he can, when he's sneaking around, he can hack into like a generator or whatever and make it blow up, and then the guards go over to that in that direction, sort of
Yeah.
thing. So
Mm.
yeah, it's probably a bit more tech heavy. I don't know.
Yeah, but what do you want to see out of Spider-Man 2?
Um, well, I'm just looking for because I played the PS4 version. It's going to be really interesting to see, how good Spider-Man 2 is going to look for a start. Um, I think I don't know. Maybe take out those bloody stealth missions. Keep the combat. I don't think we talked about the combat much, but the combat is quite deep. Um,
Mm.
and when you actually get the hang of it, and each enemy, let's say, has a different way of dispatching them better, using different moves in Spider-Man's tool set. So, the big guys, they can't be punched with your normal attacks. They need to be baited, and then you need to dodge out of the way and all this sort of stuff. And, the normal enemies will just be killed, whatever. But some have weapons, which you need to, get past their defenses, and some have big shields. So, yeah, I think they need to keep all of that stuff, which made for free-flowing, very satisfying combat.
Mm.
It's quite deep as well. There's a lot of controls and things which aren't really for the faint of heart, let's say. But yeah, when you actually get it, it feels really, really good. So I think keep that complexity of combat.
Yeah.
Maybe do I don't know. There was some quite. I think this is the same with all open world games, right? Is that they sort of get um, a mechanic. They use a mechanic for example. There's one part where for whatever reason you're chasing a pigeon
Mm.
around New
Yeah.
York City, and then I was like thinking to myself, you're chasing this pigeon and you've got to get close enough to it to basically web it and catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, this is a side mission. There's no way that they're going to develop that mechanic and never use it again. And then lo and behold, halfway through the game, there's a guy that's just like, I've lost my pigeons, and can you go round NYC and find my pigeons and catch my pigeons for me? So I think that's like a problem with all open world games, is that like they can't be very unique with their mechanics. It's not
Right.
like It Takes Two, right, where they're changing up the mechanics all the time because they kind of can.
Yeah.
It's like, right, we've developed a mechanic for this open world game. We got to use it over and over again because there's only
Right.
so much we
So
can do.
yeah, we have developed this pigeon mechanic. So now you're
Yeah.
gonna
We
go
gotta use it.
around and catch 20 pigeons before
Yeah.
the mechanic is done and over with.
Because the pigeons actually behave quite well, where they're trying to run away from you. They got this big like blue trail that comes off them, so you can sort of see where they're going, because a pigeon is quite small relative to everything else as you're swinging through the city.
Yeah.
But they actually behave in a certain way that's very pigeon like. So it's like they very much developed this like pigeon sim tech,
Pigeon
which,
AI.
yeah, which they need to use, right? They're not going to spend weeks, months developing this thing for a side mission and they're not using it again. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I don't know how you do it, and I feel like there's going to be a lot more of that. But maybe I don't know, if you're going to do something like that, vary up a little bit more. Add a few little variations, so it's not like, right, okay, I've done 10 pigeons now. I've caught 10 pigeons. There's no variation in
Yeah.
that. It's just I know I'm going to be doing the same thing over and over.
I think
So
yeah, like one of my kind of on a similar note, like one of my main concerns for Spider-Man 2 is like, all right, we've used the New York City map for Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Spider-Man takes place in New York City, you know? So are we
Hmm.
going to get the same map again for Spider-Man 2? Like how much
Yeah.
different is the map going to be? Are they going to go somewhere else or what? And obviously combat was is one of the central mechanics of the game, and it flows very well. It's a lot like the Arkham games, you know, like the Batman combat where you're kind of chaining combos and switching between enemies, and you know, do with it what you will, get creative with it.
Hmm.
But since Spider-Man 2 is going to be focusing on, you know, both Spider-Men, um, it'd be interesting to see them maybe incorporate some sort of like command mechanic where, or even like swap mechanics similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake, which we'll get to in a moment. But you know, the way that you can either tell a character to do something while you're doing something else, or even swap mid fight to the other character and kind of play into what's already happening in the
Hmm.
moment. I'm curious to see how they handle the multiple
Yeah.
protagonists, or are they just going to section it off like, okay, here's a Peter section. You get to swing around the open world as Peter, and here's a story mission as Peter, and then, you know, take it over to Miles for another section. Or they could even go the GTA 5 route
I was thinking that then. Yeah.
and kind of let you swap between characters as you see fit, and they all have their own missions that you can activate, you know, whenever you're ready. There's a
Hmm.
couple different options there, and I'm very curious to see. But I think the thing I'm personally most excited for, besides seeing the leap in graphics and stuff like that, is what kind of story they're going to tell. Because, again, I think the best parts of Spider-Man and Spider-Man Miles Morales was the stories themselves and how
Hmm.
well written they were.
We're
So
gonna
that's,
get Venom and Green Goblin. I think that's what. That's what.
I think Venom is definitely, yeah, Venom and
Yeah.
Green Goblin. That seems like
Yeah.
without going into spoilers, that seems pretty much like where it left off at the end of Spider-Man 1. So,
Yeah. And it's you were saying that it's its own sort of not unique story, but it's kind of its own variation on the existing lore. Let's say it's its own universe, the games, which gives the writers, free reign to make
yeah.
something which is kind of applicable to a game. If
Mm,
you're trying to copy, word for word the Spider-Man lore, let's say, it might not translate very good into a video game. So
right.
it's good that they were, for example, they introduce factions regularly throughout the game. So by factions, I mean like enemy factions, which are like, at the start, it's thugs, thugs around the city that are doing break-ins to jewelry shops and whatnot.
Mm,
And then it's like, the faction of thugs, which are more, let's say, well equipped and more organized. And then you've got like and then you've got basically the super soldiers and things, and
right.
the prisoners and whatnot. So yeah, it kind of like, right, we can introduce this when we want. It doesn't have to follow a set in stone timeline from the comics, which might not make much sense. So
Yeah. The
yeah,
way
I'm
that they
glad that they've gone their own
gradually
way.
introduce those different factions and the way that the game kind of ramps up is awesome too. I think it was really well paced. And as for Spider-Man 2, Eric is asking, do you think there will be a DLC featuring Venom as a playable character? I think it's going to go
Mm,
one of two ways. Either um depending on the way they tell the story of Spider-Man 2, we might actually get Venom sections within the game, just like, you know, built right in there. Or it it seems to me like Insomniac doesn't really do paid. Oh no, they did do paid DLC for Spider-Man 1, but they seemed more like challenge missions
challenges,
than
yeah.
anything substantial. And I think that if they were going to do something really focused on Venom, they would probably go the Miles Morales route with, you know, kind of releasing a standalone game that
Mm.
uses a lot of the assets and stuff of Spider-Man 2. And then it'll be like, you know, a 10-hour storyline just focused on Venom. That's kind of my prediction of how that's going to go.
I
Um,
think um, I think with the way that Spider-Man the story went, I think Venom will definitely be a playable character in a DLC or even in the game.
Yeah, yeah.
So Eric, I agree.
Um, cool. So that's Spider-Man. I think we covered a lot of ground there. What else you
Yeah.
been playing recently?
So weirdly, I went back and had a look through my library of games that I had from the PS4. I kind of had this weird relationship with the PS4 towards the sort of middle of its lifespan, where games were just running like absolute dog shit. I'm sorry to say, but
Mm,
they were just because it was the base PS4, right? So
yeah,
I only had that. I didn't really want to upgrade to the PS4 Pro. I didn't want to. I don't want to get involved with those like mid-generational leaps, in power.
yeah.
So I had a base PS4, and games started to just I don't know. So I had all these games on my PS4 account, which I didn't really play through. Um, but we'll get to that in a second because one of the games that I played was the Crash Trilogy,
Oh,
Crash Bandicoot Trilogy, which I just kind of wanted
insane
to play.
trilogy.
Yeah, I wanted to play the Crash 3 Warped again because that was my most played Crash as a
That is a
kid.
good game. That's a classic.
Um, yeah, it's good. It's like you said, it's classic, but unfortunately the controls are very classic as well. Um,
Yeah,
it's the first time I've kind of noticed it that like Crash Bandicoot in the old games, Crash
the,
controlled like absolute
yeah.
ass.
The controls didn't age well at all for Crash Bandicoot, in my humble opinion, and it's been
Mm.
well, it's been a long time since I played the original releases. But I did play the Insane trilogy, and I played it on PlayStation 4. But Crash was a victim of fake analog control.
That's absolutely true, right?
Yeah.
Because I was playing it earlier where, Crash, sometimes you're running straight ahead into the screen, sometimes you're running out of the screen, sometimes you're running side to side. Side to side was not too bad in terms of movement because it is just left and right.
Mm.
But when you're running forward and you're trying to navigate a very thin section of floor, let's say, there is definitely fake analog control. It's 8 directions, even in the remake.
Yeah.
So, you're trying to use the analog stick, and he's very, very kind of twitchy, if you like, when you're trying to like sort of correct yourself, and your thumb is going like mad on the
Yeah, it
on
makes
the thumbstick.
precision so difficult, and some of the
Oh,
things are very precise in the Crash games, especially if you're trying to, get all the stuff, all the secret levels and whatnot, and
but even his other moves that Crash can do, in terms of his spin is very, you use it once, and then there's kind of a hidden cooldown. You kind of want with your platformer game for an attack, you want to like keep doing it, keep doing. If I
mm,
could just spin and keep spinning as long as I wanted to, then that game would be much easier.
you know what the trick
Um,
is for that speedrunners use. I don't know if it works exactly the same, but you slide and then dash directly after it, and I think it like resets the cooldown time for the last one. So
mm,
sliding and then spinning, you
right.
spin and then that resets the cooldown on the slide. So you slide, which resets the cooldown on the spin, and kind of keep chaining them back and forth, and
But the,
that's how
the
you
the
like.
worst time I had with the spin was when I was hanging off the monkey bar rails.
Ooh, yeah.
When you're doing that, and it's like, okay, so there's a scorpion that's going sort of perpendicular to where you want to go,
Mm-hmm.
and he's it sort of goes on a wider trajectory than the sort of place that you're on. So you go forward, you try and intercept it and wait for it to come back because you can't go straight through because it's going to nip at you as you go past. So it's like, right, I'll sit here. You got to time it so perfectly because if you're too early, then it's going to hit you while you're on your spin cooldown, or
Yeah.
obviously if you do it too late, then you're dead. So
Yeah.
um,
I
but
always had
people
trouble.
are saying that the Apple Bazooka made it easy. The Apple Bazooka doesn't help with the speed runs, which I'm trying to do now. So
Oh, you're
if you
doing the
don't know
time
about,
trials.
yeah, so I'm trying to do those first. It's good for the boxes. So in Crash Bandicoot, you have multiple different levels, and
Mm-hmm.
you have challenges to do basically, and you get different gem rewards for it. So you get a gem for just completing the level and collecting the gem wherever it is in the level. Then you get box gems where there's boxes in the level. There's only so many boxes. If you get them all, then you get another gem. And if you do the level within a certain allotted time defined by the developers, then you get these relics as well.
Right.
And to be fair, it's quite in Crash Bandicoot Warped. You do get power ups, so you get a double jump, you get an apple bazooka and whatnot.
Belly flop.
You get a belly flop, but to be honest, they're not really. I don't know. They're useful for the box challenges, which are fair enough. You just got to get all the boxes in the level. You can take your time. You got checkpoints, but that doesn't help at all with the speed runs. The speed
you gotta
runs
make use of
ridiculous.
those slide spins. I'm telling you, that's the secret to getting good times.
Well, to be fair, I've got 30. No, I got 29 relics out of 30 now.
Wow.
So I'm nearly there. But there was one level that I played today. I thought, right, I'm just going to play some Crash today. This is going to be nice and chilled out. I 100%ed this game as a kid, so it'll be fine. I can do it now in my 30s. And then I was just like, Jesus Christ, how did I ever do this as a kid? This is ridiculous. You can't just get the sapphire. So basically, you get 3 tiers of relics as well. You get sapphire relics, gold relics, and platinum relics. And I think the platinum relics are the developers' time, right?
Right.
Which are like ridiculously hard to get. I haven't got any platinums, but you need to get the middle one. So it's not just good enough to get the sapphire relics, which are quite easy to get. You have to get all gold, which are significantly harder. But again, one of the powers is a double jump. So you think, right, complete the game, get the double jump, and then come back and, you can, it's much easier with the double jump. But the double jump is so slow and it's so finicky as well. You can activate the double jump at the up portion of the jump until he reaches his point where he starts to come down again. If you're at that point, he won't double jump again.
Oh, no.
So it's literally me. I jump and then I smash the X button, just like, please double jump, please double jump. I'm on a magic carpet in the middle of Agrabah or whatever the hell, and there is a bottomless pit below me, and it's like, please, please, please activate, because there's been so many times that it just doesn't work. But yeah, it's I was a little bit disappointed in the controls and the fact that I didn't really.
Yeah, you were telling me that after playing or replaying the Insane Trilogy, kind of put you off on the thought of getting into Crash 4.
Yeah, you put my mind at rest with that, though.
Yeah, because it plays a lot better than those remakes, and it is very difficult. But the fact that at least on PlayStation 5, it runs, it's going to run 60 frames per second at a base, but I think it also has the option for 120 frames, I think. So
That's what I like.
you can get the ultimate smooth experience. It controls like a dream, but that doesn't mean it's any easier necessarily. Yeah. I'm interested if you do end up playing it to see what your thoughts are, because they incorporate a lot of new mechanics into Crash, which I was very skeptical about at first, because Crash is a very straightforward game, as far as introducing new abilities and things like that. Anything that they give you isn't really game changing, isn't really going to, essentially every level just consists of, those same mechanics of jumping and spinning, the double jump, the belly flop, all that stuff helps, but all those things are built into Crash 4 right at the start, and the abilities that you unlock are things like, gravity manipulation and infinite spins. So you've got like levels where you're essentially like flying by spinning the entire time, and it adds a lot of depth to Crash that was definitely missing, and that they tried to add, I think, in some of the like in between games when after Naughty Dog stepped away from Crash and they gave it off to other developers and stuff. But the way that it's incorporated is very natural and feels really good to play. So I would say don't let your experience with the Insane Trilogy turn you off of Crash 4, because honestly it's one of the best platformer games to be released in recent memory.
Well, my love for platinum trophies, and I know that the Insane Trilogy, the only one that's really, really challenging is Crash 1.
Yeah, but
Because
good
I think,
luck
like,
on Crash 4 getting a platinum trophy.
well,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's what
that's
I'm going to
real
say
work. Yeah.
is that the platinum trophy in Crash 4 is like ridiculously hard. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think you have to beat the developers at every level and stuff
I
as
think
well. So it's
so.
you are basically, if you get the platinum trophy in Crash 4, you are like some sort of Crash Bandicoot god because you're better than all the developers.
That is an achievement. You deserve that platinum. If you
Yeah.
unlocked it, then good on you, you know.
And I kind of want to take on the challenge, but I know that I'll be smashing my
Would you
head
stream that
against the
game
controller.
if you ended up getting it? Would you stream it?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, yeah. I definitely stream my runs, but I don't know how I don't know entertaining it would be watching me,
Oh,
sticking
please.
my head through my monitor. But
That's the most
um,
entertaining stuff, you know. That's
yeah, but
content, baby.
that probably takes us on to the next game because I'm also streaming this at the moment,
Ooh.
which is another hard game,
Uh-oh.
which is the one and only, the mighty Demon Souls.
Oh my god. Sub-Zero
Um,
playing a Souls game? What
oh
the heck?
no,
What kind of
what's
bizarro
this world come
universe am
to?
I in? Yeah, how
So
how you feeling? Yeah, how is it?
so just a caveat is that the rest of the Soulsborne series I've played probably a quarter to a half of each one, um, and it's not like kind of it's not the difficulty that puts me off because I like difficult games, as you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of get these flashbacks to like the kind of the SNES and NES era where the arcades were all the rage. How do you make people spend money on arcades where you make the game super super hard so
Right.
people put more quarters or whatever into the machine? Oh, let's make home consoles, and then this is how we make games. We make them hard. So the NES era was kind of that like switch over period where games were like just super 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 hard.
Yeah.
Um, and the concept of lives and continues, which didn't quite make sense on a home console.
No, definitely
I'm glad
not.
that they shifted away from that.
Yeah.
But it kind of reminds me of those days. Not as bad, let's say, in Dark Souls, but it's that kind of thing where you go to a boss, you attempt it, and then you've got that whole run back to the boss, from the bonfire and things, and you can be doing that, sometimes 20, 30, 50 times maybe.
Hmm.
Um,
And to be clear, you are playing the Demon Souls remake for PlayStation
Yes,
5.
the remake. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, this is the PS5 one. It looks absolutely incredible. We streamed the first episode of it yesterday, where I beat one boss and then was stuck on the second, and I went somewhere else and was also quite stuck there before we ran out of time.
Hmm.
But the game just looks absolutely incredible.
It's
It's got
one
a
of the best looking games I've ever seen.
it's amazing,
Yeah.
honestly. It's great, and it's good to see as well. That the home console, it was in performance mode as well,
Hmm.
and the game just looks like unreal.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
And so
I did
performance
switch over
mode,
to the
yeah,
mm,
the performance mode, it allows the game to run in 60 frames per second at 14
mm,
about like 1440p. I think it's a little dynamic. And then obviously the quality mode shoots for a native 4K resolution,
mm.
but it bumps down the frame rate to 30 frames per second, and honestly, that is just not the way you want to experience a Souls game, in my opinion. You want it to run in 60 frames for maximum fluidity. Um,
Yeah. Anything with precise actions, fighting games, racing games, Dark Souls games, you need 60 FPS at least because 30 FPS, honestly, like a lot of people don't believe it, but it's the difference between getting an attack off on time and not getting that attack off on time. So I think it's absolutely imperative that it is 60 FPS. And the good thing is that we're in a performance mode on the Demon Souls, so it's 60 FPS, which is good.
right. Right.
But yeah, my impressions of it so far, like I know how Dark Souls works, I know how games like Bloodborne and whatnot work. Um, it's kind of a semi-open world kind of thing or interconnected world, let's say,
Yeah.
with with minimal kind of loading screens between each area, so it's kind
Right.
of like you get this feeling of a big expansive world. But Demon Souls kind of flips that a little bit. I say Demon Souls flips it. It's the original in the series if you don't count Kingsfield.
Kingsfield,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it's kind of more world based, like kind of a little bit like if you think about Super Mario, right?
Mm.
You've got World 1-1, World 1-2, World 1-3, sort of like levels within worlds. So um, you can go to any of the worlds at your discretion. You can
Yep.
do however many bosses you want before maybe switching to another world. So we went into the first area. We beat
Right.
the first boss. Then I decided to carry on and go to the second boss. Had a bit of trouble, let's say, had a bit of trouble, and then thought, well, I- I'm not going to do the old bonfire run for the rest of the stream, right? So I'm going to go somewhere else and just have a check out of the other place. And
Yeah.
yeah, we could just freely go to World 2, let's say, and try and get to that boss before we run out of time. So it's kind of that kind of setup, which is quite interesting. Obviously, there's no things like Estus Flasks. It's more, just healing items in general.
Yeah,
Um,
which is something that I kind of on my playthrough, there were points where I was really missing the Estus mechanic. It's
yeah,
nice to know that even if you die, you're gonna get at least your health refilled,
I
and
think that's why they changed it, right?
yeah,
Because
it made it very grindy, I think, on the first game to kind of
yeah,
get yourself a nice little stockpile of healing grasses. I think they fixed that a little bit in the remake where drop rates are a little bit higher for enemies and stuff. So it's not quite as grindy, but there's always that lingering anxiety like, well, if I go through all 20 of my healing grasses, then I've got to either go find someone to buy more off of, or I just have
yeah.
to grind enemies until, I feel comfortable with what I have.
I can feel myself getting to that point as well because I did have quite a hefty stash of healing grasses, and now they're
Mm.
dwindling quite a lot as I try to make my way to the next boss. Um, but yeah, I think it's kind of like I can't go into the more deeper mechanics wise, things like that. I can't go deep into that on how it differs to the Dark Souls or Bloodborne or Sekiro or whatever.
Mm.
But it feels like a lot of Dark Souls, kind of Dark Souls thing to me. I'm kind of half magic, half melee, which the magic is a bit cheesy in Dark Souls games, as we all know.
Yeah.
Um,
You get the
but
best
I'm
of both
having lots of
worlds,
fun with
though.
it.
You know,
Yeah,
magic, you have the ability to kind of, get in there and poke with a sword and kind of experience like, oh, this is how it like a melee build works in this game.
mm.
And then if it's not working for you, you could just switch to easy mode on the fly, and just pepper the bad guys with soul arrows and be done with
Well,
it.
that's the thing, right? Is that in Dark Souls there are magic builds, and you
Mm,
think about what Dark Souls means to a lot of people is having a sword and a shield and dodging out of the way of enemies' attacks. Learning their tells of when they're going to attack, what type of attack they're going to do.
yeah.
Getting around the back of an enemy and doing the old backstab mechanic.
Ooh, so
The
satisfying.
yeah, the melee combat in it is very kind of, I don't know, for me it feels like it's kind of the core. You always see people fighting in melee, right, in these games. But obviously with the magic mechanic that I've got this spell called Soul Arrow, and basically all I'm doing is locking onto an enemy as they walk slowly towards me, and I'm pressing R1 and they die, which
Yeah.
that works for me. That works for me.
Like I said, it's a good fallback. I kind of wish that I had at least invested a few more points into Magic when I played Demon
Mm,
Souls. I tend to play all Dark Souls games. Like I role play a little bit. I have a certain build that I make, and in my mind, I'm playing as the same character in every Dark Souls game, but a millennia or something like that always passes between each game, or like an indeterminable amount of time. So
mm,
how has my same character like evolved from game to game? And
yeah.
I like that. I like thinking like, oh, this is my same guy from the last game. I'm gonna build him the same exact way, and how is he gonna fare in this adventure? So when I played, and that build for me is usually faith heavy, which in Dark Souls, faith allows you to learn miracles, which are just another form of spell.
Hmm.
Usually focus more on like healing or buffing or getting rid of status ailments and stuff like that. But eventually, it allows you to wield lightning magic. So I kind of go from like this guy wielding a mace and just bonking stuff on the head and healing himself and stuff to this crazy lightning wielding crazy guy. And I thought I would do that with Demon Souls, and I started investing into miracles and stuff. But in Demon Souls, it's just straight up healing, uh, backup heals basically.
Yeah.
So I never really got that ranged option in Demon Souls, and it made the game a lot more difficult. So I would definitely rework my build into something that is a little bit more, best of both worlds.
Yeah, and the good thing about streaming a game, any Dark or Soulsborne game, let's
Mhm.
say, is that you get a lot of people coming into your stream that know everything about the game inside and out, and they do help you. Sometimes a bit too much, to the point where I'm just following their literal inputs. A few people go left, go right, go up there, go down here, go down there, and it's like, oh, okay, well, but yeah, I mean, like streaming a Dark Souls game, there's such a huge fandom for it, and I'm kind of like stepped out. I'm on the outskirts of that fandom, very much doing my own thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've never, they've never really grabbed me before, but I need to finish a Soulsborne game, and hopefully it'll be this one.
Yeah, I think you stand a good chance, and the fact that it is so visually appealing is one of the things that kind of I think is going to be the carrot in front of your nose. Just wanting to
Mm,
see what the next area looks like, or what the next boss looks like, or how are they going to flip around and introduce like what new mechanics are they going to have for this level, and it really is like JRPG era is pointing out, like the remake helped him realize like how well the levels were designed and how well they aged,
mm,
despite getting a bit like a massive makeover to make it fit on modern generations. But the levels themselves, there's no, it's all the original code underneath all that prettiness. It's the same
mm.
levels. It's everything is exactly as it was, which I really have to commend Blue Point Games. They are top of the line for remakes, and I know a
Oh,
lot of
they're
people
fantastic. Yeah.
are. I think they were just recently bought by Sony as well, so they're now like a Sony first party studio. Um, but a
Mm.
lot of people are wondering what is the next game that they'll remake, and everyone's got their different opinions, what they want to see and stuff like that. And I think most people are um, hoping that they remake Metal Gear Solid. How would you feel about that?
Um. ugh, I don't know. I don't know. Well, I think we're going to talk about the Final Fantasy remake shortly as well,
Yeah.
but I'm not really sure how they can do it with still capturing the magic of the original one. Obviously, they're going to go, a totally new perspective. It's going to be probably, I don't know, the same sort of third person perspective as Metal Gear Solid 5 was.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Metal Gear 1 had a lot of like top down portions almost, where the
yeah,
camera
yeah,
was
it was.
quite
Yeah.
far away from. So you think that they would reel it in more, and cuz again, like they build their games off of mainly like the original code, I think.
Mm.
So it'd be interesting like how I'm curious if that was the game. I feel like that would be, as far as a remake goes, uh, much more different than the original. So it'd be a lot different from their other remakes
Yeah.
too, like Shadow of the Colossus and Demon Souls, which are almost one for one remakes. I think there'd be a lot more creative liberties taken with Metal Gear Solid.
I think I don't know. Like I think Golden JRPG era said about Twin Snakes, and that's
Hmm.
probably like a great remake. That's a great remake in itself.
Hmm.
So I think if they
That's
are going to
interesting you
make
say
it,
that. I feel like most people did not like Twin Snakes.
I thought it was really good. I liked
Yeah.
Twin Snakes. Anyway, I think like if they're going to um, yeah, if they're going to remake Metal Gear Solid One, and those perspectives of being up above the character, and I don't know, I think that some of the magic gets lost when
Mm.
you go away from that very um, simple kind of look and feel, that aesthetic, that you know even Solid Snake, looking out for guards, which one has Meryl's ass and all this sort of stuff. It was just so like, oh my god, and it kind of worked because it was like this weird, janky kind of like look to it.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't know if the magic would get lost for me. And it's not a very long game as well.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Solid One, so I feel like I don't know. Are they gonna try and add a bit to it? Maybe add a bit more of what made Metal Gear Solid Five. In terms of its
Mm.
mission based. I don't know.
Metal
I
Gear
don't know.
Solid 5 was very much like the breath of the Metal Gears, you know? It
Breath
was
of the Metal Gear.
yeah. Um which I know a lot of people had mixed opinions on MGS5, but and I to this day have still not beaten it, to be totally honest.
Mm,
That's one of those games where I want to do all the side stuff. I want to get 100%, and it just takes a
mm.
lot of time, you know.
It came out at a time for me where I'd just come off the back of like probably 3 or 4 open world games, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, Metal Gear, you got to play a Metal Gear game. And then I think I played the first chapter, and then I could see what it was going to be, and I was like, nah, nah. I haven't played it since. I've done chapter 1 of Metal Gear Solid 5, and didn't go back to it. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's probably a great game, and I probably, if I was burnt out on maybe more linear games, I'd go back to it and really like it. But
Mm.
yeah, I've got the same thing as you, where it's like, oh, there's 5 side missions that I've got to do now. Between each main mission, and it will take me 100 hours to actually complete
Right.
it. So.
I will say it is a good game to just boot up and fuck around in. Like you could just do silly things in that game, and I think that's core to Metal Gear Solid. Is it doesn't it takes itself very seriously, and then it doesn't take itself seriously at all. So that those moments really stand out. But me personally, I think after playing, I've been playing a lot of Soul Reaver over the course of the week, and I would love to see what they if that game got remade. I don't necessarily think that Blue Point has to do it. I would personally like to see Crystal Dynamics go back to it because they put out some great stuff too, and for them to just get back into one of their original properties, I think would be really like they would just go all in on it, you know, and make it amazing. But Soul Reaver has aged, and I know it's it's up there for a lot of people's favorite games, and I can see why, because it kind of is PlayStation 1's Zelda, you know, and it's a mature Zelda, and it's even got Metroidvania elements in it, and it's very well, it's very thinky, lots of puzzles, but it's aged poorly, I think, especially in the way of combat. The combat is very clunky in it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm quite reserved when it comes to remaking the games that I used to love. I know there's like been Silent Hill 1 mentioned as well, and it's kind of like I wouldn't want Silent Hill 1 to be. I think
Silent Hill 1 holds up really well.
It does, honestly. But it's like the creepiness of it came from like kind of its look and aesthetic as well. Like about the development of that game where they had to put in the fog because of the what the PlayStation could actually handle.
Right.
So why don't we put a fog that's 3 feet in front of the character where you can't see anything, and we only have to render a portion of the screen.
Right.
Which is very clever, but I think if they did a Silent Hill 1 and they made it beautiful looking and maybe from a third person kind of like closed it, I can see it now in my mind's eye, and it's like I just feel like
just give us Silent Hills. That's all we want.
Yeah, they made a Silent Hill 1 remake for the Wii, didn't they?
I think so. Was that Origins? I think it was called Silent Hill Origins,
something like that.
I didn't play that one though.
But it was just absolutely chock full with motion controls. So you had actually whole sections of the game where the character was running by himself, and you had to dodge out of the way using your Wiimote and
Oh,
slap
Shattered
the Wiimote on
Memories.
top. Yeah, when somebody Shattered Memories, that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a retelling. Yeah, it was, but it was kind of like I don't know. It was a bit strange for me.
I avoided most of those games. I did my little Silent Hill marathon, and I really only wanted to focus on those first four games and seeing the trajectory that series made. And I know for a lot of people, I think I've said this plenty of times, was where Silent Hill started to fall off for them. But I really enjoyed it. But I just, after playing four Silent Hill games in a row, I wasn't ready to jump into the PS3 and like Wii era of Silent Hill. I would rather
They're
just
kind
leave
of
that
better
untouched.
to be left alone anyway. You played the good ones.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, since we were talking a little bit about remakes, I think both of us have very well, we grew up playing Final Fantasy VII. It's near and dear to our hearts. So I've played the remake. I played through it on PS4, and then when the Intergrade came out, I did the Yuffie side DLC, and then I restarted Final Fantasy VII Remake in hard mode on PS5, since now it allows you to play in 60 frames per second and just looks generally better and plays much smoother. So you haven't actually beat it at all yet, but you played it now for a little bit on PS4 and for an even littler bit on PS5 after you downloaded the free
Very
upgrade.
little.
So,
Yeah.
how are you feeling about it? What are your impressions of the remake? How do you think it was handled? And
So I'm like a very I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy VII. It's my favorite Final Fantasy. It's one of my favorite games as a kid. It took me God knows how long to actually beat that game. I thought it was just going to be this never-ending experience sort of thing.
mm-hmm.
And I absolutely there's Cloud there. Yeah, there he is, the boy. But yeah, I was, and when I found out that they were remaking it, the fanboy inside me was like, yes, and the sort of the cynic in me was like, oh no, they could completely just ruin the kind of the legacy of it. They wouldn't ruin the legacy for me, but I reckon a lot of the younger generation would be like, oh, this Final Fantasy VII was actually crap. But yeah, I bought it for the PlayStation 4 again, base PS4, and I really, really like the game. I like that they're giving Midgar a bit more, attention, love, and care. The whole game takes place. Well, the majority of the game takes place in Midgar, as I understand. I haven't finished it yet.
Right.
But I couldn't. I just couldn't get past the performance. I was playing it on a base PS4. That's all I had, and some of the fights in it were just leaking down to maybe 20 FPS, something like that. And it's not a turn-based game either. It's kind of they've got
very
action elements
oriented.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a deal breaker for me, and it was kind of like that feeling of I'm just gonna forget about this. I'm just gonna stop playing it. I'm gonna uninstall. Not touch it again. Not look at anything online about the game. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to once the PlayStation 5 comes out or the PC release. I was waiting for the PC release, which I think is out now.
It is. Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for the PC release, and then obviously you got PS5. You get a free upgrade if you've got the PS4 version. And I booted it up today just to check out the first section where you jump off the train in the reactor. And oh man, it's like a different game with just being 60 FPS and looking a bit nicer. It's just like, oh, finally, okay, I can actually enjoy this game now instead of watching what was essentially a PowerPoint presentation of the game on PS4.
That jump of even 30 FPS to 60 FPS is just it is such a difference. It is such a drastic difference. It's just
definitely.
Yeah.
It's I think yesterday when we were playing Demon Souls on stream, we went from performance mode to quality mode just to see what the difference was. and the quality mode, just jumping down to 30 FPS, where you've literally just, literally paused the 60 FPS game and changed the mode,
Mm-hmm.
to see that difference,
Like in
technically
real
side by
time,
side
pretty
was just
much.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, real time. Yeah, it was just like, wow, like this is just horrible. 30 FPS is just horrible. So I know I sound like a proper, I don't know, frames per second nerd here, but
No,
it's
but I
it's quite
mean, when
important.
you when
Yeah.
you see one, 1 second, and then swap to the other one just to see what the difference is, it is a huge difference. Like, and for games that require a lot of precise inputs and have a lot of action going on at the screen, it does. It looks horrible in comparison to 60. It looks like stop motion almost. It just doesn't look like how it should move. Um, and it's not. It might sound snobby, but like when you see one and then switch to the other, it is just so obvious that you can't help but be like, ugh, no, no, thank you.
Well, I've got a 144 hertz monitor,
Mm.
so my PC can get up to 144. I'm not that kind of snob where I'm like, 60 to 120 to 144. Like it's got to be 144. I can't play 60 anymore.
I
You
can
can tell
barely
the
tell. Yeah,
difference.
I can barely tell the
It's
difference between 60 and 120.
it's weird sometimes, right? Because I'm playing, if I'm playing a game and it goes from 120 around, the low hundreds, let's say FPS, and it drops down to like even to like the 72 FPS range,
Mm.
that's when it starts looking like kind of 30 FPS to me. Then,
Hmm.
it's weird. It's weird. It's all relative, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So if you go from 120 down to like 72, that's kind of the same kind of gap that
yeah.
you've got between 30 and 60, even though it really isn't, because obviously past a certain point the human eye can't tell anymore.
Right, right.
So yeah, I'm not that much of a snob. I will play 60 is fine for me. 60 is absolutely fine. If every game was 60, that's fine for me. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna die on that hill. But 30 for me now is just, I don't know.
it's
And
tough to go back to.
we were saying this before, like, with the Unreal Engine coming out, and some of the frame dips that we saw in that Matrix tech demo, and
Mm-hmm.
bearing in mind it was just a tech demo. But I'm hoping now that they're not going to get to the point soon with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X where they're like, actually, we can't really do a performance mode because the performance mode is basically 30 FPS.
Right. Yeah.
And we're going to get rid of the options now and just put this really good looking game 30 FPS on the console, and then that's what it's going to be then for the second half of the generation, or the I don't know,
Yeah,
the
I
final
would hope
two-thirds.
that like there's definitely scaling options. Like no matter what, even they should always be able to be like, okay, well, here are the sacrifices that can be made to hit 60 FPS if that's the way that you want to play it. Like, I hope that option doesn't go away, but I understand that fear too, where it's like, well, this is just the level of fidelity of the game, so the base experience of this game that the PlayStation can handle is 30 frames per second at whatever the resolution.
I think the good thing about Microsoft and their first party games is that they're all being developed for PC first, so they've already got those the options embedded within the game. So because they have to provide the game on countless PC configurations, so
Right.
they can literally take that and say, right, let's just drop this down, let's bring this up, and okay, we can hit 60 on the Xbox and the PlayStation. So it's like, well, it wouldn't be the PlayStation, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that other developers as well are like, just have this in mind, that a lot of people just, they won't be able to get through your game. Like me, as one of my favorite ever games being Final Fantasy VII, and then remaking it, and not being able to get through it is just like, there's a lot of people
That says
like
a
me
lot.
out there that are just,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's just, I think it was more the fact that the game was like dropping down to like 20 FPS at some points. It might have been my PlayStation, or it might be just the fact that it was a base PS4. Um, but yeah, it's something that needs to be considered, I think.
So you think you're gonna get through Final Fantasy VII Remake now. Is that going to be your next like deep dive game? Are you really going to focus on it now?
Maybe I got, like I said, I got 3 weeks off work,
This
so
is true.
yeah, and it's like it's weird when you get like a new console, which and you've kind of missed out on a generation before. It's like oh god, I got so much to play. Not even just PS5 games, but
Hmm.
PS4 games and whatnot. So I got so many games like floating around in my head. Like you keep saying that I need to play Returnal.
You do.
Um, I got all these
Yeah.
other PS4 I got God of War, all the Uncharted games which I haven't played.
Ooh.
So Last of Us Part Two, like all these games that I just haven't even touched. So
There's good
um,
problems. Good problems.
it is really good. Yeah, yeah,
I kind of had that experience too lately where there's just been so many good games that either I missed out on, or even just being added to Game Pass and stuff that I normally
mm,
like. I try to only start like one game at a time so that I can really dive into it and get into it, and I try not to start something else until that game is done or I'm done with it.
yeah.
But yeah, man, lately I have like just started so many games for some reason. Like I've been playing Halo Infinite, which I'm really struggling to get through, but we could talk about that in a little bit.
Mm.
Just so many games. Death's Gambit. Like I have like 4 or 5 games going simultaneously right now that I've been jumping between, and I really need to just buckle down and finish one of them.
Mm.
Um,
Like I can't do just one at a time. I need to change it up a bit. But if I'm doing one that's like say Final Fantasy VII Remake, then I need to you need to like concentrate all of your effort, effort on that
yeah.
to actually get through it. You can't start a Final Fantasy VII and a God of War side by side. You know what I mean?
No,
But I always
I
have.
don't even know how you're gonna switch between the Final Fantasy VII and Demon Souls. Those are gonna be an interesting
Yeah, yeah.
control scheme and play style to swap between. I mean,
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't do Final Fantasy VII Remake just yet. I'm not sure, but I always have a game like, say, a Demon Souls or a Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then I'll have a game that's like, you know, maybe your Crash Bandicoots or your
yeah,
Rocket League, something that's like, and Rocket League is like my ultimate podcast game. It's so good for that. But I've always got to have this kind of like game that you don't really need to think too much about
right.
on the side, which you can switch to if you're getting a bit
Just a
burnt out on a.
casual playing game,
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, even with
yeah, so
even with streaming lately, I've been like I try to focus on one game at a time for stream, but I've had a couple different like games running at the same time, and it's just it's tough when you're switching between a lot of stuff to either remember the last thing you did in one game, or control schemes and stuff like
control
that.
schemes are the worst. Like the worst thing I'm having, the worst problem I'm having with this bloody PlayStation 5, right, is this bloody button here. Is this bloody X button.
Why?
It always says bloody press X button, and I press square, don't I? Because I'm always
Ah.
I'm used to the Xbox controller. That's what I use on PC. So it's
Oh
just like,
no.
every single time I'm like, it happened a few times during Demon Souls yesterday. It was like, oh, press X to do this, and I was pressing square, and I was using up my bloody valuable healing grasses, wasn't I? And when I was at full health,
Oh
and
man.
yeah, it's brutal, but
Then
I'll get used to it.
for
I'll get
some
used to it.
reason, like I can switch pretty easily between a PlayStation controller and an Xbox controller, but when you throw Nintendo into the mix, that's when I get lost because
Do
they
you still struggle to this day to get X and Y right?
yeah, yeah. Yep. I always hit Y instead of X, or
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, those are the same designations for an Xbox controller, and they're swapped or they're flipped. So Y is where X should be and X is where Y should be. Same thing with A and B, and yeah,
Yeah.
I that has always been a struggle for me with with Nintendo.
It's like, guys, please just like, PlayStation got the shapes right, but just if the letters and the shapes have already been taken, right? Just do something else. Just do something else. Maybe just little smiley faces
Or
or
just
something. I
put
don't know.
if you're gonna do letters and the same letters at that, just put them in the same spot,
Yeah, just
please.
all agree. Just all agree that X goes on the bottom or X goes on the left. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Just all agree on the same place.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was going to ask if we can have a quick toilet break because
Yeah.
I need a wee
By
wee.
all means, go
Um,
right ahead.
yes, animals and emojis, sunshine. We need a
Animals
controller with
emojis.
emojis on it. A little poop emoji, little crying emoji.
That would be great. All right, I'll swap us to
Right.
the BRB screen, and
Okay. You can speak to people and all that sort of good stuff.
sure, I guess I could do that. Let me see here. We'll swap from this to BRB. So let's see. What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for hanging out to the VGB show. I saw we had a new chatter today, Fluff Nugs. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. We had Rafa. Rafa, how you doing? Squaresoft, I hope you're doing well. Sunshine, I hope you're doing well. Press the owl button, then double tap the frowny face with a mustache. Oh man, I like your line of thinking. That is quite genius, honestly. Been a great show so far. Looking forward to part 2 of episode 3. Ooh, I am glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, this is a bit different format than what we've done for the first 2 shows, which were, pretty much they were great conversations. I had a lot of fun doing them, but we were kind of just reading down a list and, sharing our opinions and stuff. This is much more of a freeform conversation between me and Zub, and we talk a lot. Off stream and stuff like that. So this is just a little bit of insight to what a casual conversation between the two of us is like. And there's a lot more ground to cover. We don't have any notes or anything in mind about what we're going to be talking about for the remainder of the show, but I've had a good time so far. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the gaming world. We're not even talking so much about like a lot of current gaming events or anything like that. I know I try to keep up with gaming news. I'll read it in the morning and stuff like that. Check up on Kotaku and IGN and Eurogamer. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about something that has been making headlines over the last 2 days, because we have been talking a bit about the Final Fantasy remake, which, Zubs just started playing on PS5, and I've played, I've put quite a bit of hours in there, but it's also released on PC, which Zub mentioned. And, we're going to talk a little bit about that port and a little bit about the state of video game releases in general. A lot of games tend to release in, I don't know, less than good states. And, I don't know. We'll get into it. But it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. I personally would rather have a game be hit with a delay than be released in just a nearly unplayable state. But yeah, we'll get into that. I hope everyone's been having a good weekend. I don't know how many of you guys went and saw Spider-Man No Way Home, but I am not going to be going to see it in theaters, I don't think. I would rather wait to be able to stream it in the comfort of my own home. It's not that I don't like the experience of going out. It feels like an event, to go to the theater and see a movie and experience it with a crowd of people, but I've just grown very comfortable streaming things and watching movies in bed. I actually last night watched Venom 2 Let There Be Carnage because I was like, I want to watch something Spider-Man-y. I watched Zub beat Spider-Man on PS4.
I have returned.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Let's get you back over here. What's going on? How was that?
My wee wee was excellent. Thank you very much.
Nice. I was just talking a little bit about, I was like in a very Spider-Man mood last night,
Yeah.
and after watching you play that, and Eric was kind of telling us how good No Way Home is and stuff. So I
Hell
ended
yeah.
up renting Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, watching it last night. Did you watch
Yeah.
Venom? Did you watch the first one? I know you don't
No,
watch
I
many
didn't know.
movies. Yeah,
No, I never did.
it was all right. You know, it was
Yeah.
kind of like a body horror. Just like it made me think a lot of Evil Dead, which is one of like my favorite movies, movie series, and I thought it was. I went into it with really low expectations, and I guess when that happens, and a movie is even just slightly enjoyable, you might like have better opinions than other people who expected this big masterpiece, and it wasn't that. So I quite liked Venom 1, but yeah, Venom 2 was pretty cringy. I wasn't a big fan. And
No.
it's disappointing. I feel like if you're gonna do that story of Venom versus Carnage, it's got to be rated R. It's gotta doesn't need to be like ultra gory where it's like gratuitous, but to have that movie rated PG-13, it just I don't know. It felt not fake or like I don't know. It's just I wanted so much more from Venom 2 and
Yeah.
that kind of event, that kind of like crossover
I
type thing.
I don't know if anybody knows this, but I know nothing about movies. So all I can do is
That's why it's the VGB show. We have to talk about video games. The minute we
know
talk
about
about TV
games.
shows
I know a lot
or
about
movies,
games.
subs checked out. But
I believe you in your criticisms and loves of Venom. I absolutely agree
oh, thank you, sub.
wholeheartedly.
It's good to have someone on my side for once, you know.
Just
Yeah.
listen to Plush. Whatever Plush says about movies, I agree.
So overall, so far, what you've seen of Final Fantasy VII on PS5 has been much more impressive than the PS4 release, much more enjoyable, and you're probably gonna stick through it to the end this time, at
Yeah,
least.
definitely.
You know.
Yeah.
So it was also released on PC finally, which is what you were originally waiting for it to release on, and
Yeah.
seems like we're getting mixed messages about the PC release. From what I've seen of tweets of the guys at Digital Foundry, the port is something to be ashamed of. Is
Yeah, it was
what I've been looking at.
very well. They were one of the first to like absolutely lambast it, to say, you know, it is the worst PC port that they've ever seen.
Wow.
And I'm like, from Digital Foundry, it's like that's big, you know. They've got
Yeah.
to be very careful, right? Because they've got a lot of trust, you know, with the community, the whole gaming community.
Yeah.
If they say something it performs badly, then it does.
Mm-hmm.
But then looking at the reviews today and looking at a lot of other people's opinions who have actually played it on their PC, they're saying that it runs absolutely flawlessly, and it's better than the PS5 version of the game.
That is weird.
Yeah, so I think this is a common problem anyway with like PC reviewing, because you know I'll download a game on PC, it'll run like crap. You know, you go online then to see, oh, is there some issues with the game? And then you'll see forums upon forums of people saying this is the best PC port we've ever seen in our lives. It's so good, it runs like butter. And it's like, well, what's wrong with my machine then? And then similarly, you know, I'll play a game and it will run absolutely, like, you know, you look at Death Stranding and like Horizon and things like that I've played on PC, and you know, they run absolutely fine, like, you know, 120 FPS at, like, you know, very very high graphic settings and things, and people are like, with better computers than mine, having very very bad troubles with it. So, you know,
Horizon got similar flack when it released on PC, right? Like a lot of people were saying it was a poor port.
Yeah, so there was a lot of you know, frame rate issues, stuttering, things like that, and also, you know, maybe more graphical bugs and things with the game. But they sorted it out very very quickly, which was good. But again, like, I think that was more like they had more reason to you know, shame that PC port a bit more. But it seems like a lot of PC games, you know, you can never test for the amount of configurations that PC can have, right? whereas one person with the best PC on the market will have um, incredible problems. I remember when people were starting to use two graphics card with the SLI technology, right?
Mm.
Where basically you have two graphics cards working at the same time, um, and people were putting two Titan NVIDIA graphics cards in there, which were like the £2,500 graphics cards, and they were saying these games run like crap. How can this happen? And it's all to do with this SLI technology, which wasn't very good for a multitude of games.
Okay.
The developers just forgot to implement that technology or didn't really think about it because it's a very small subset of the PC community that actually have that capability.
Yeah.
But it just seems like trying to consider all of these different configurations of PCs, and it's not just the hardware; it's the software as well. It's somebody might have their PC completely clogged with editing software and all this sort of stuff, which can slow down your games as well. So I don't know if Digital Foundry tested it on maybe they'll do a video. I don't know. But I know that they were talking about them testing it on a PC with a 3090, a 10700K.
They usually do it with like pretty
processor.
much the top of the line rig,
Yeah.
and then they kind of give you scaled down. They say this is what we tested it on, but for best settings, they'll list out all the best settings to run the game, and they say this applies. Like you could just scale it down depending on what your
But that's the
rig is.
problem then, isn't it? It's like you've also got NVIDIA graphics cards, but then you've got AMD graphics cards. So they're using 3090s, which is all well and good. But then AMD cards can have issues across the board, or certain AMD cards could have issues, with games as well. So it's very, very hard to find. It's kind of like a crapshoot whether your PC is going to perform well or not with a certain game. And I think that's why having refund policies and things in Steam nowadays, which is fantastic. It's so important for PC players in general. That's the good thing about console gaming is that you buy a game and it's going to work to whatever standard that the developers have envisaged for it.
Right.
Unless there's something faulty with your hardware, which, let's be honest, hardly ever happens with a console, right?
Yeah, or unless the game releases in, a broken state, which has been happening more and more frequently lately. Whether that's comes down to the pandemic and how that's affected workflow, and the big wigs like trying to just push these things out and meet their quotas, meet their dates and stuff like that, please the investors, all that kinds of stuff. Just more games are coming out that are just, you want to like them, but they don't play well. I've had a lot of experiences with that lately, and I don't know what it is. It's and it happens on console too. It's not just PC. It's usually like the game itself. It's just
with AAA games. I don't know if they're just biting off more than they can chew. To be honest, like you look at the issues with Cyberpunk, things like No Man's Sky, going back even further, and today's new releases like Battlefield 2042, they are releasing in states which are just like disgusting.
Yeah,
it's the equivalent of, I don't know, buying a physical product of something and it just doesn't work as intended on and you'd expect a refund at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're paying a lot of money for these games, and the fact that it's kind of this mentality that's going around now, I think, especially with these big AAA developers who are like bound by publishers and investors and things, which is like, right, we're just going to have to release this now. We're going to pretend that it's a 1.0 release of the game, and actually it's more of like not
a
even an early access. Yeah, it's like kind of a beta,
Man.
like sometimes even an alpha test. I mean, Battlefield 2042 that came out recently, I was just shocked by, and I think it's in a bit of a better state now, because that's also a problem with the game industry. As I'm talking about a game this week, and it'll be a completely different game next week and next month and next year. But Battlefield 2042, when that came out, I did the 10-hour free trial, thankfully, and the game was just completely broken. Like, even not even from just a balancing point of view, where it was unbalanced as absolute shit. It was the game just didn't work. It was hilarious. The assault rifles in the game just wouldn't register hits. The you could actually physically see the bullets coming out of the muzzle at really weird, odd directions. You
Oh
just couldn't
wow.
hit anything from a distance, and it was like, what is going on here? Who tested this? You know?
Yeah, there's
And like,
that. I think weren't you also were playing Vanguard at one point, right? And
mm,
I think it was some sort of multiplayer match. You had killed someone, and their body like shot up into the air and turned into like a Slender Man. Suddenly their limbs were like
stretched,
all
yeah.
stretched out, and it was just like crawling around in the skybox and stuff. And it was just like, this is a AAA big huge release game. And I mean, these kind of bugs are funny, like we laugh at them and stuff, but like at the same time it's just like, just look at how broken this game is, you know? It's
Dude, like, people pay a lot of money for these games, you know, especially something like Call of Duty. I mean, if Call of Duty, if Activision, if EA, if all of these massive, the biggest companies within gaming can't get this stuff right, then there's some big issues there.
yeah,
You know, like, all of these games need another year or more in the oven
it's
before
it's
being ready to
unfortunate that
release.
yeah, it even bleeds down into, it trickles down to indie developers too. Like, I mean, one of my most anticipated games from this year was Soulstorm on PS5. And
Mm,
you know, that was a game that I was fully intending to, you know, purchase day one, basically. As it crept closer to release, PlayStation actually offered it day one as a PlayStation Plus free game.
mm,
Um, and I was like, this is perfect. You know, Oddworld is a PlayStation game for me. I don't have to shell out extra money for it. I could just install it and good to go. And it was just, there were so many bugs, so many things that actually gated my progression in the game because the game glitched out. And this is a game where, again, I'm trying to 100% it because it's just how collectibles and stuff are factored into the story and into the levels. I'm compelled to go through and save all the Madookans because
mm.
that's
Yeah,
just, that's part of Oddworld to me. That's how you get the best ending. That's how I want to
exactly.
experience
Yeah.
the game. So if you go through a whole level saving 100% of the guys, that's some steep challenge. And then
Mm,
I remember that's exactly what I did. I got to a puzzle where there was a gate, and in order to open the gate, you very simply had to do like a puzzle, like in the background, essentially figure out how to kill all the enemies in the area. Each enemy was basically powering this gate up, and once you kill all of them, the gate powers down and you move to the next area. Well, I went through and killed all the bad guys, and the gate never went down.
mm.
So I said, okay, this is clearly either I'm missing something or this is a bug. So I did the old Google. Yep, you got to kill all the enemies to progress. Okay, I will reload my last checkpoint. Reload the last checkpoint. No, nope. Do the whole puzzle again. Nope, the gate still is not coming down. What's the only way to resolve this is start the entire level over, okay? Which gets rid of all of my progression of saving all these Madookans, and hope to hell that this time when I get to that part of the level, it works well. And now here we are. I think that game released in either February or March, and here we are at the end of the year. And I think last week or 2 weeks ago, they released the Soulstorm Enhanced Edition. Okay, this is real. Yes, it was a free update on PlayStation, so if you already own the game,
Oh,
you
thank
you
God.
you get the Enhanced Edition, you know, for free. And they released it on other platforms and stuff. But when I read that Enhanced Edition, I thought to myself, "Oh, so the game actually works now." Like,
Yeah,
you
the
is
fixed
it
edition.
yeah, the fixed edition, like they should have just, in my opinion, like delayed the game until
Yeah,
December
yeah.
and released it in December so that it was a working enjoyable experience right out the gate, rather than putting out the regular version, which just was essentially a beta, and then releasing the real version or the enhanced version. It's how many games are we gonna get that do that? It's or
Yeah.
on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have a game that I've been playing recently called Death's Gambit. All right, which I hadn't played it at all until recently, but they went back in and reworked the entire game, uh, from how attack animations work, to animation canceling, to boss mechanics, to item placements within the level and world, and they re-released it as Death's Gambit Afterlife. So it is the same game, but it is a completely different experience than if you bought the game 2 years ago and played it. And to me, that's also very interesting, because it's not that the original game was broken or didn't work well. I think it was generally well received, but they were able to just go back and essentially make the game that they wanted to make from the start, or improve on portions based on community feedback, and actually make an even better experience without the original experience being a broken mess. And again, that was a free upgrade. So if you had owned Death's Gambit, 2 years ago, you bought it and you beat it, now you can upgrade it for free to Afterlife and essentially experience the game again, but it be completely different. That's much more enticing.
That's the way you need to do it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you had Death's Gambit and Death's Gambit Afterlife both on sale at the same time, somebody's going to think, oh, wow, they've got a sequel as well. I'm going to play the first one, then play the second one. And then, suddenly they realize that, although they changed stuff up, you would be pretty, you'd feel like you've been hard done by, I think.
That was something I was a little scared of, honestly, before I bought Death's Gambit, because I was like, it didn't come out on PlayStation, which is where I wanted to get it. Was just I wanted to play it on PlayStation, and I looked at in the store and it was Death's Gambit. It just said Death's Gambit. There was no Afterlife, and I was like, well, no, I'm not getting this if I know Afterlife exists, and God forbid they put out Afterlife and it was like a whole separate thing and I had to upgrade. No, I'm just gonna wait. But thankfully, yeah, the original Death's Gambit doesn't even exist on the PlayStation Store anymore. It's just Death's Gambit Afterlife. So I have no option to go back and experience the game as it originally was, which might also be a bit of a turnoff for some people that maybe played the original version and maybe might end up preferring the original version. At least on console, there's no way to run back the updates or anything like that.
No, because it's its own separate kind of application download, if you like. But
yeah,
that's kind of the issue that I've got with this kind of thing now. With you look at games as a service, you look at the way that games are updated constantly. You buy a game nowadays, and every week you've got an update for it. Even if it's a single player game, and that's kind of like weird to me because when you bought a game like, say, Banjo-Kazooie for Nintendo 64, and there was some weird, some very minor kind of weird things going on with it in terms of bugs and whatnot, and maybe some like soft lock opportunities and things like that if you were really going out to look for it. But besides that, you buy the game, it's complete. That you can't update a cartridge, in Nintendo 64 cartridge, so they have to make sure that it's absolutely perfect. Whereas nowadays, where you can just send out a patch for your games, they're just like, they get to a point in development where it's like, right, okay, we need to release this now, whether it's a certain time of year, where games tend to perform better, like kind of the November period, or whether they've got team leaders or investors and things breathing down their necks to get it out. They're thinking, let's take the flack of it now that the game doesn't really work, and then just update it later on. And the fact of the matter is, say if game X that is released and I buy it on release day and I say to you, oh, it's absolute shit, don't bother with it. and then say a year down the line you say, oh, this game X actually is on sale, oh, maybe I'll get it and see how bad it was, and you'll play it and you'll think it's the best game ever because it's
Right.
had an extra year of updates and things like that. The game that I played and the game that you played are two totally different games, even though they're the same
Yeah.
thing. So
It's weird.
it's like
It's weird on a couple levels. It means weird things for game preservation. Where again now, if Death's Gambit, I think was. I'm sure that maybe it had like a limited run release, or maybe it's going to have a limited run physical release or something like that. But again on consoles, if you wanted to play it in its original form, it just simply does not exist in that form anymore. So
yeah,
that version of it is, lost to the ether.
yeah.
And
Unless somebody manages to get their hands on it, turns it into a ROM or an ISO
right,
or whatever,
right.
and
And
you can play
again,
it on emulator years down the line.
it's different on PC where, I'm sure that you could just run it back to a previous update from before the Afterlife update and just, be done with it. But yeah, it's different on console. And I also think it's interesting too to see like we talk a lot about speedrunning, right? And how developers approach glitches pertaining to speedruns and stuff like that. Like some developers may patch a game like Bloodstained, right? When I played Bloodstained, the fastest way to move around was to do a backdash cancel. So you would, I think it worked like you would backdash and then crouch, and then that would cancel the backdash animation cooldown, and then you could just keep looping through those two actions and pretty much just zip around the map. And then I played it, and I'm not a speedrunner, but I ended up.
It's good for getting around.
Yeah, I ended up making use of that and getting pretty good at it, and just zipping around all over the map and stuff, and it became actually like quite enjoyable to move around that way. And I play it a week later, and that gets patched out, and now the game is just slower overall.
Yeah,
Or
especially if you're used to it. Yeah.
yeah. And then there's the flip side of the equation where I think it was over the last week that Insomniac put out a patch for Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart pertaining to a what's it called, like a grapple swing trick that was used for speedrunning, and they actually patched it to make it work more consistently for speedrunners. So instead of like removing it from the game, like no, this wasn't intended, you weren't supposed to skip the entire portion of the map by using this, they said no, we'll make it easier for everyone to use if you're speedrunning, like
Because the average person won't encounter that.
Yeah.
It's going to be, it's purely for speedrunners. Then let them do it. But I know that there's a lot of so there's a segment that IGN do where developers react to speedruns of their games.
Yeah.
And I get this feeling, I've watched quite a few of them now just to see what the developers' reactions are, and I get the feeling that the developers are a bit pissed off.
They're not usually very happy. I've watched a few of those too, and I hear the developers like, how did that get through? Or like, oh man, I think I'm gonna go back and fix that and stuff like that. And then you can hear them like wiggling a little bit, like sweating a little bit, like, ooh, yes, that wasn't what we intended.
But then they get quite personal as well. Then you see them going, oh god, this guy, oh, he must have played this like countless thousands of times, like basically saying this guy hasn't got a life and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, dude, this guy loves your game so much that he just wants to do a challenge, his own self-imposed challenge mode. But the fact that they don't really like that stuff makes me think that a lot of them are, they take it as a personal slight, because I think speedrunners sometimes don't, put themselves in a very good light as well, because they always use words like broken. This game is completely broken. Look, you can do this. This is absolutely broken. It's like if somebody spent 3 years of their life developing a game, and they know within themselves, they're like, the average person won't ever encounter this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they're a bit at odds with each other, developers and speedrunners. There's a bit of bad blood there, I think.
Yeah.
But it's good that like you said, Insomniac are just like, right, the average person
Yeah.
will never encounter this or work it out.
One of my favorite
use it, so.
one of my favorite moments from that devs react thing was a Hades speed run. Actually, I think it was just new game, just beat the game like pretty much on your first run, without having unlocked anything. Just game starts, get all the way through to Hades, and just beat a run like that. And they were like, yeah, we had never intended anyone to beat Hades, on their first run. But you can hear them getting a little bit excited. They're like, we put in a special line of dialogue just in case anyone happened. Because eventually someone is going to come along and do it, right? So they're like, oh, look at this unique dialogue that happens. And the speedrunner gets to it, just skips right by it, doesn't even he just like skips exactly. And you could just like audibly hear the developer like sink, he's like, oh no, they didn't.
That's the thing though, isn't it? Like a big criticism of speedrunners and stuff is like, why don't you just enjoy the game, bro? Why don't you just play it as it was intended?
They are enjoying it,
Yeah, exactly. Like they don't buy a game like on the first day and go, right, okay, I'm gonna skip through this and speedrun it straight away. They've obviously played the game through and enjoyed it enough that they want to do speedruns of it. And it's like the fact that they are speedrunning it, like you say, is them really enjoying it. Enjoying the game. And
a lot of the main criticism that I see, leveled at speed runs is that they're not really playing the game, as quickly as possible, and when they say that, they mean, well, how fast will it take you to do things as intended, right? As the developers intended, without breaking out of
without exploiting glitches. But then they have their different categories.
They do.
Yeah.
But even even a lot of glitchless categories and stuff, they might skip over portions or things like that. To me, the speed run is not the same as experiencing a game casually. Like, they are cared about, all they care about is the clock, right? And all that matters is getting the lowest time on that clock as possible. And what's interesting to me is seeing how they, and I'm gonna say it, break apart a game or break open a game and learn all the little mechanics on the insides that allows them to, and I'm doing this in air quotes, exploit it to get the fastest time. It's and
that's the thing. Like, even speedrunners have their own internal sort of moral compass about, is this actually a speedrun if we just skip level 2, 3, 4 because of this exploit, or like you say, do we need to make sure that we're doing glitchless runs, so we're might be exploiting something within the game that's a bit on the fence in terms of a glitch or not, but we're actually making it all the way through the game. And that's when you see the categories split off then, right? So you see glitchless, and then, or sometimes just specific skips, without this skip and then with this skip.
Well, okay,
it's
so
quite cool to see.
You don't see a lot of like I feel like you don't see a lot of like glitchless 100% runs. Like, a lot of games might have an any percent category, 100% category, and then a glitchless category. Those might be the three main category, or the ones that you see the most often. And if I'm gonna watch 100% speed run, I know that they are skipping over things, doing things unintended in order to get that 100%. And to me, that's fine, because again, they have a deeper appreciation for the game already. They know all the ins and outs in order to be able to get the 100%, but doing it in an unintended way. And I feel like, people might be turned off by that. It's like, you did get the 100%, but you skipped a lot of the obstacles in the way of that 100%, like, to get it. And that's where that weird,
I think, just in
happens.
The spirit of competition, as long as they define their own rules and they're keeping to that rules, I don't really mind how they're doing it. If they're skipping, like, you look at the Final Fantasy speed runs and they skip like a huge portion of the game, it's like, well, if that's within the rules that they've set, there's still that competition to reach the
Mm-hmm.
or to break those records, and it's quite fun to watch them, attempt it and work out new strategies. Like you look at the GoldenEye speedrunning community, which has been out ever since the game came out in '98 or whatever. Those communities have been on those old style internet forums since the game first released, and
Right.
obviously the game had an in-game timer and had cheats, unlocks and things associated with it. But the fact that you think that these guys have been playing that game for over 20 years now, and they're still finding ways to find quicker strategies, quicker routes through the different levels, and some of them like haven't been broken for 10 years, and then somebody works out something in a level, and suddenly it's just blown wide open, and all of the speedrunners are back again trying to get the world record. And like it's crazy. It's like it's I think Summon Insult does a good video on the human limit. So
Oh,
one of the most popular
I do like
speed
summoning
runs.
salt.
We do like Summon Insult. If you like speedruns, if
Yeah.
you've got any interest in speedruns, then go and check out Summon Insult on YouTube, because he does great videos, and you'll be addicted. You'll be watching them all night. But he
I've
does
only
one about
watched
the human.
2 so far. So yeah, what's that?
Yeah, he does one on the human limit, which is obviously all his videos are about speedrunning. But there's
Right.
one video about Mario, the original Super Mario Brothers, and the fact that that game is so old now, and it's one of the kind of one of the more popular original home console games, that
Right.
many people have played, and probably the most popular speedrun game,
Probably.
for so long. People have reached the limit of what they can do in that game. And he basically goes into like literally there's nothing else that they can do to actually besides from absolutely perfect inputs over the, I don't know, 10 minutes or whatever it takes to complete that game now. And then the fact that everybody says all the time, like, it's so funny when speedrunners, they'll get a world record and they'll go, I think this record will stay. I don't think it's possible to get any better than this. And they
And then it
always
always,
eat their
yeah.
words, always eat
Yep.
their words, whether a new trick comes out or somebody better just comes along and just smashes it. But yeah, Rafa says the human limit is about human beings trying to save every frame roll in Super Mario Brothers and match the optimal task. So yeah, they've got these things called tasks as well, which is tool assisted speedruns, which is basically a computer calculating every single input, every single frame
Right.
to do the maximum or the best possible speed
The
run.
optimal, yeah.
The optimal speed run. But also with tasks, they do certain things which aren't possible for humans. For example, pressing A on like every frame for like 30 frames or something. Obviously, the human hand or whatever can't do that.
Yeah.
So task runs they're really good to watch because they are somebody inputs every single frame all the way through the game to get the best time. But yeah, like Rafa says, the human limit one is awesome. Yeah,
I gotta
you should
check
watch
that
that.
out.
You should watch that.
So I am actually gonna step away and use the bathroom really quick. But yes, it's my turn now. But I will leave you guys with Mr. Sub-Zero, and when we get back, we will continue the conversation. I'd like to tell you a little bit about a few games that I've been playing recently, and yeah, and we'll see where the conversation takes us. So I will be right back. You take it away, Zub.
Hello, everyone. How are you today? Are you having a good day? I know I am. Speaking with Plushy Bowler on the VGB podcast. Sunshine says, the expression in artistic communities is that you are calling their baby ugly. Nobody wants anyone to deride the work they spend so much time on, even if it is just exploiting glitches.
Sub ASMR. It's over now. Hello, Rafa. Hello, Sunshine. Yeah, Sunshine, you're absolutely right. Like, these guys have worked so long on these games, like literally toiled, crunched day in, day out to get these games out of the door, and it is literally these games are their baby. I remember one of the devs react videos, which was I think it was Tomb Raider, and basically the guy broke the level so much that he went out of the map through the ceiling of the map and was basically flying with Lara Croft all the way over to the end point. And they had one of the level designers there, and all the devs sort of turned to him and was like, "So how'd you let this happen?" And the level designer's like, I don't know. But it's like, dude, like they're all getting a bit, antsy about it. They're all getting a bit, defensive. But I'm not going to play Tomb Raider and get myself out of the map through the ceiling and fly to the end of the mission. You know what I mean?
You're not?
So, well,
Come on.
you know,
I thought you
know.
were VGB. VGBs can do things like that.
No, that's
what are you doing on this show if you're not a VGB? What are you doing here?
That's the VG SB video game Speed Boy. Yeah, that's somebody else. That's there must be a video game Speed Boy out there somewhere.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure that there's a video game Speed Boy podcast somewhere out there too.
Probably they can join our cult. There's an organization.
Excuse me. What?
Sorry. Right. So Plushie.
Yeah.
How was your Wii first?
Oh, dude, it was so relieving. It was great.
Good.
I feel like a new person.
To hear it. And also, you said that you were going to talk about some of the games that you've been playing this week. So
yes.
Take it away.
So, the last game that I played before coming on here with you is a game called The Gunk, which was made by the same developers as the SteamWorld games. So SteamWorld Dig, SteamWorld Dig 2.
I like those games.
SteamWorld Quest. I've actually never played any of the SteamWorld games. Yeah, which one is your favorite? Have you played both Dig and Dig 2, or?
I've played Dig and Dig 2. I also played, what was the one that was like it was kind of a CRPG one.
Was it Heist, or was it Quest?
Heist, yeah. Heist, I think I've played,
okay.
I believe. But Dig and Dig 2, they're really good. They remind me of those Motherload. Were they Motherload games?
Where I never played Motherload, although I do have one of them was given away for free on PlayStation Plus at one point, and so I have it, and I never experienced it. From my understanding, they're like Metroidvania style games, right? Or is there?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Do you remember those Flash games where you'd have like some basic character, and then you dig down and you get resources, and then you come back up and get upgrades?
Yeah. So it's kind of like Dig Dug. Oh, but like
Dig Dug, kind of like that thing, but also with a Metroidvania on the side. Then, so you get new powers which can help you out in sort of pre-designed sort of puzzle areas, which you can dig down to.
So I always really like
they're
Mr.
really good. I think
Digger.
you'd like it.
Have you ever played Mr. Digger? Is that what
was
they
that
call
Flash
it?
game?
No, that was a Dreamcast game that I mean, it was on other platforms too, but I think originally it was Dreamcast, and they had a re-release of one of them on Switch that I ended up getting, and was actually pretty good. I really like those games where it's a bit puzzly, but essentially you're like drilling downward the entire time, kind of trying to match colored blocks, and they
it's the opposite of those
like
Flash games where you had to like fling your character up in the air. Do you remember that one? And get as high as you can, and then you get like the penguin one. What was it?
Like
Learn to Fly
Kitty
or something?
Cannon?
I think it was called.
You ever played Kitty Cannon?
Kitty Cannon. And what was the one with the like Guacamole style guy, like the Nacho Libre kind of guy, and you had to bounce him on jelly babies?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of what it was called, but yeah, it's just like
it's kind of like that, where you like you get so far, and you can get so far with your basic abilities, and then you come back up, get upgrades, you can get a bit further, and then yes, bison something, bison blah blah blah. I can't remember, but. Yeah, so they're a bit like that. I reckon you'd really like them, Plushie.
I have Dig 2 on Steam. I think they gave it away for free on Steam, so I just grabbed it, So this game, The Gunk, is from the same developers as those games, so I really have nothing of theirs to compare it against, but this is their first like fully 3D game. And The story of it is pretty good. The characters are pretty well written, and they get pretty nicely fleshed out over the course of what I'd say is probably a total of a 5 to 6 hour experience. And I'm not going to get too deep into the story. Essentially, they land on a planet that, is covered in this mysterious pollution, and you kind of take it upon yourself to clean it up and restore the land as you go along. The main mechanic is following a girl named Ronnie. She has a mechanical arm that has a bit of a vacuum utility to it. So the way the game plays out is almost like an actual mix of Super Mario Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion, where you are cleaning up like a gooey pollution substance to restore the land, but instead of washing it away, you're doing the Luigi's vacuum mechanic of sucking it up. And that sounds great, honestly, because I have my problems with Mario Sunshine, but one of the most fun acts in that game was actually, spraying the water and like cleaning up the gunk and stuff. That I'd say like a lot of the more clunky things in Sunshine had to come down to how they incorporated it into like platforming. But then you got Luigi's Mansion, which takes that mechanic of vacuuming and just does it so well and makes it so interesting, whether, with different types of ghosts that you're fighting and the way that you fight them, and the puzzles and, the way you solve them, different attachments on the vacuum itself that keep the game really fresh and interesting and fun to play throughout the whole thing. And the gunk does not have anything quite like that. As far as like the act of sucking up the gunk itself, it pretty much is just point your arm at it and hold the trigger, and it kind of just happens. It's a little slow. It just doesn't feel like that fun to do, which is a problem when that's the central mechanic of the game. There is combat in the game as well, but nothing near as deep as Luigi's Mansion, where like there might be a little alien critter that you suck up, it gets stuck into your vacuum arm, and then you throw it and it's dead after you throw it at something. And then maybe like a bigger enemy, it'll charge at you, and you kind of just avoid it and get around behind it and vacuum its back until it dies. So very, very much a very simplified combat system. There's very light platforming, nothing very challenging or anything like that. It is.
What perspective is the game in? Is it like a third person?
It's a third person
thing,
game.
Like...
Yep, it's third person 3D platforming game. It must have been, I think it was made on Unity Engine. The game that it reminds me the most of visually is actually that game Lost in Random that I played a little bit earlier in the year. It controls very similarly. Obviously, Lost in Random has a whole bunch of other mechanics that make it its own game, but this is very stripped back. It's very straightforward. The puzzles are all very similar, whether it be, just clear all the gunk out. Maybe you might need to use, like, suck up, like, a bomb ball that you then throw at something to clear a path, or suck up a seed that you then throw into a pool that grows other platforms. It's all very light mechanics. I'd say the game is much more like walkie simulator and story driven than it is, challenging on a mechanical level. Which
that's weird that they kind of went down that route. If they made, the SteamWorld games, because they're very kind of mechanics heavy, Metroidvania style things.
Yeah, I was expecting something more mechanically. I don't know, not even like intuitive or like I wasn't expecting them to necessarily break new ground with the mechanics that are in the game, but I just expected those mechanics to kind of be expanded on to the point where they become very interesting and evolve throughout the game. A lot of the upgrades in the game are things that they don't change the combat or anything like that. I think one of the first upgrades that you unlock in the game is the ability to sprint. So for the first like hour or so of the game, you're moving at walk speed, you know. So that was like, it felt nice to get it, but it doesn't change the way the game plays, except for now being able to move from one point to the next a little bit faster. You know, there's no grapple, there's no double jump, there's it's very much a straightforward linear experience. The good thing about that is, again, that the story is intriguing. I definitely have been hooked by that central question of what is the gunk, where did it come from, and why is it here, what happens if we get rid of it, you know, yada yada. And the characters, again, are genuinely interesting and well written. Their voice acting is really good, actually. Like, all very strong points in the game, and that's why I say it's probably a little more something like Firewatch, which I still have not played Firewatch. I plan on playing that within the next couple weeks now that it's on Game Pass. But
it's on Game Pass, yeah.
It seems much more of a story-driven game than anything else. I was almost expecting it, and a lot of the vibes that it was giving me too was reminding me of a game that I actually really, really enjoyed a lot, and that was called Recore. That was an Xbox One game from the creator of Metroid Prime, and was similar. It had only a few major mechanics that it focused on, but again, as the game went on, they evolved those mechanics to become, you know, really interesting in a way that the gunk hasn't really done. So I'm not quite done with it yet. I probably have another hour left of gameplay. I'm very close to the end. It's probably a game that you can beat in 1 or 2 sessions, or like me, I would have beaten it in 3 sessions, essentially.
What are you playing on?
I'm playing it on Series X, which I've been noticing it, like, some games don't support some of the things that I just kind of assume that every game would support. Like, the gunk didn't support auto low latency mode, which is really rare. I feel like, you know, auto low latency mode just means that the Xbox switches your TV mode from, you know, maybe cinema mode to game mode automatically as soon as you boot up a game, and then if you close the game, it'll automatically switch it back to cinema mode. So it doesn't support that. It doesn't even support HDR on Xbox Series X, which I found to be rather surprising. More games seem to support it now than don't. So, but the game still looks great and stuff. It just it's not breaking any new ground, in my opinion. It's a good looking game, and I'm interested to see what this studio comes up with next, if they continue on with the gunk as a series, or if they maybe take SteamWorld and set it in a 3D environment. Definitely curious to see what happens next, but overall the game has, like, if I was going to score it, it would probably get something like a 2 out of 5 or a 2.5 out of 5. I need to finish it and see just how interesting the story is by the end of it. But
it always makes me a bit, I don't know, uncomfortable, where it's like the only thing going for me in this game is to see how the story ends, you know?
Yeah, and it's definitely like, hitting that point for me where, you know, it's good that it is written that well and that, you know, it's performed well. But it's just mechanically uninteresting overall. Yeah,
that's a shame. But it's day 1 Game Pass release as well, which is
good. I mean, I'm glad
nice
that I didn't, you know, because I was interested in it. The game that we're talking about is called The Gunk. And yes, it was a day 1 Game Pass game that was released on Thursday. I had mild interest in it. I don't know if it's something that I would have rushed out and bought right away. I probably would have done my research on it, and like I went into the game without reading any reviews or anything. It was just something I thought looked cool. I was excited that it was on day one Game Pass, so I pre-installed it and I just decided to boot it up and experience it with a fresh mind. And yeah, and I think that has definitely led me to judge the game more freely and stuff than looking at other reviews and seeing what other people thought. I don't really know how well this game was received by the online population, by game critics across the board and stuff. I just know my experience with it, and it's a pretty middling game. Are you looking up the Metacritic score?
Yeah, it looks like it got 71, so yellow.
Okay.
Mixed or average reviews.
It's a C. It's I probably would have graded it lower than a 71. It probably, if I was going on a percentage scale like that, it probably would have been like around 60. I would have given it a D on a grade, a letter grade rating. It's
It's as I always say, though, isn't it? It's like, what does 71 mean?
I don't know. That's what I mean. Video game scaling. It's subjective, like IGN. You look at something like IGN, and they're either gonna give a game a 7 or it's gonna get a 9. There's very rarely that you see games scoring super low, and if a game gets a 10, it's usually a AAA release or something like that. I can't even think of what their last 10 was, but pretty much any it might have been like Deathloop or something. Oh, and I think that they gave Halo Infinite campaign a 10 out of 10. I might be wrong about that, but that's what I mean. Like, Halo Infinite's campaign is not a 10 out of 10 for me. It's a far cry. You see what I did there? It's a far cry from a 10 out of 10. You like that?
You're saying Far Cry is a 10 out of 10, do you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't tell
Nothing
Trey.
on Far Cry.
No.
Don't tell Trey.
Yeah.
It's weird talking about IGN is that they gave Forza Horizon 5 Game of the Year.
Oh, did they really?
Which, yeah, just after I was saying during our Game of the Year list episode, what was that? Episode 1, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was saying Forza Horizon 5 will never win Game of the Year from anyone because it's a racing game. It has the audacity to be a racing game, and they never win Game of the Year. IGN gave it, so fair play, IGN. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's good. That's genuinely surprising. Not something I would have expected. But yeah, I also think, just to throw it out there, I think that it's probably going to be Game of the Year for a couple people at Digital Foundry too, as well. I think that it was very well received with them, and
well, it performed very well, which is good in terms of its running the game on PC and whatnot.
Yeah, IGN
and
watched it.
It was probably one of the few AAA games this year that has come out and had very minimal issues. I think the only issues that I had personally with Forza Horizon 5 was the servers. Just unfortunately, when you lost connection to the servers, if you were going 200 miles an hour, it would just bring you to a dead stop, which was very annoying when you had a little skill score streak going. But anyway,
oh no. So yeah, that's the main game that that's the last game that I've been playing recently, was the Gunk. We already talked a little bit about Death's Gambit, but I am very thoroughly enjoying that game. That's one of those games that, every now and then a game comes along, I'll start it up without expecting too much from it, and suddenly I find myself completely engrossed in it, and just with no intentions of stopping until I see the end of it. It is one of those kind of, it's, I think it would probably describe itself as like a Souls-like Castlevania style experience, but the Souls elements are pretty light there. It definitely gets a lot of its aesthetical inspirations from Dark Souls, but it's very much a, like, I would say Metroidvania, but it's pretty much a Castlevania style experience. And it's really well written. It's got, you know, its own deep lore. It's kind of got the thing where, you know, you're gonna be learning about the lore through text, through item descriptions and things like that. So you can pretty much get
Please
as
don't
deep
take
into
that
it.
game industry and put it in everything. Please, no.
You don't like that? You don't think that's immersive?
No, no, it's not immersive. It's rubbish. Tell
No.
me. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
Dark Souls, like, it's okay, like, every now and then, but Dark Souls now, it's just, everybody's trying to do it. It's all this, like,
Well, yeah.
kind of piece it together yourself.
Not every
and very,
game
very...
needs to be Dark
No.
Souls, you know, and I do like that with the lore sometimes, like the ability to kind of like if you find the environment interesting, and you have all these like lingering questions and stuff, it's cool that there are ways to be like, oh, you can actually learn a little bit more if you just, you know, if you picked up an item in this area and you read what does this item do, you're not only learning what the item does, but you learn about
I think
how it
it's
fits into the overall world.
I think it's the fact that it's like, you know, the item description thing, like on Dark Souls, you know, where it's very vague and like it's, you can pick up anything and it doesn't really seem to fit into like the area that you're currently in or whatever. It's kind of like just an overall thing, like where you compare it to like the old emails and codexes and voicemails and stuff that you get in other games, you know,
Yeah.
which tell you a bit more about the lore, which are optional. I love that kind of stuff because it kind of takes you on a side story as you're going through the game, you know.
Oh
To
yeah,
piece
it's
it
great.
together
You know,
yourself.
things like BioShock or even things like any arcane game, pretty much like Prey. You know, you don't have to read those or listen to the audio logs, but at least with something like BioShock, it adds way more depth into the experience, when, you know, you're hearing these performances and the other things that have gone on kind of like before you got here and stuff like that. But it does kind of annoy me to an extent, how many games try to adopt the Souls formula of like, you know, if you die you lose your upgrade materials or whatever, and you got to get back to the spot where you died, or the checkpoints are few and far between, and you know, you've got to activate a stone. There was a game that I played, either I think it was really early this year, called Blue Fire, and Blue Fire kind of made its name as a 3D Hollow Knight kind of game. It had that kind of Souls, some Souls mechanics in it too. And I was playing the game, I was enjoying it, and it just hit a point where I was like, why are they doing this? And it doesn't fit with the style of game that this is, to just try to force these Souls like elements in there just because that's kind of like what's hot at the moment, you know. It's,
Well, what about Jedi Fallen Order,
oh
the
god,
Star Wars game? Oh man,
yeah,
that
that's
was
another
awful.
one. Yeah,
They just didn't understand what made Dark Souls good. It's like, yeah, okay, have a big interconnected world, but then have backtracking all the time through it. It's like, right, you've done the end of this area, now backtrack all the way through this world back to your ship.
yeah,
I
that's
was just
another
like,
one
oh,
where
you don't
it just
understand.
was not necessary. You can make a game difficult, but it doesn't have to, you know, adopt all these formulas that have made Dark Souls work. You know, there are other ways to have difficulty scaling in a game, or a difficulty learning curve that you need to adjust to without just making it like, you know, just like Dark Souls. There are games that I think do it well. I mean, I think that the Surge 2 was a very, very good Souls-like game, that had enough different mechanics in it to make it stand alone as its own style of Souls game. But then you have something like Darksiders 3, which, I mean, Darksiders itself, every game has kind of been
Changes.
yeah, it's and on top of changing from game to game, every game usually apes on other games. Like the first game was God of War meets Zelda. The second game was like Diablo meets Zelda, I guess. And then the third game is just straight up a Souls-like game. And I was like, this just, it doesn't fit here, you know?
The series
Darksiders
doesn't have its own identity, then, does it? It's
no.
like Darksiders just gets known as what's hot today. Let's make a dark, broody version of it.
Yeah.
You can't make a dark, broody Dark Souls. It's like it's already dark and broody.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same thing with Mortal Shell, which were you playing that recently? Did you play any Mortal Shell?
I downloaded it, but then I didn't. I didn't carry on. No, well, I didn't. I didn't actually boot it up.
The aesthetic of that game is so similar to Dark Souls that yeah, you know, that it's just like can we? I know you guys love Dark Souls, but can it just look a little bit different? The good thing
Not
too
everything
is that
has to be a deserted castle.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they have their main mechanic in that game, which is the hardening, which is kind of used as in place of parry or just in place of shields in general. You harden your character and you can tank a hit, and you can do that like in the middle of one of your attacks, or you can do it midair and land on an enemy's head and do big damage. And it's a novel idea that works well, but when you're doing it in an environment that just is ripped straight from Dark Souls, it loses its flair to me, you know. Although I did quite like that game. It's a very short experience, which I think worked in its favor.
That'd be better for me as well, as somebody who's not really a connoisseur of Dark Souls or Souls-like games.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's easy either. It is still difficult.
Yeah.
It's just as opposed to Dark Souls, which I spend a lot of time on Dark Souls or Bloodborne. Like my first playthroughs of any of those games probably range around like 60 hours or plus. But yeah, compared to that, I think I probably got through Mortal Shell in like 10 hours. So that's a big difference. You know?
Yeah. So that's one that I might be able to finish one day.
You're gonna finish Demon Souls. I believe in you.
I hope so. That's if I go back to where it all began, I finished that one, and it's supposed to be one of the more tough ones, I believe. So
I think so. I think
yeah.
it's more difficult than some of the other Souls games. That's for sure.
I've got a little quiz for you, Plushie.
Right. Okay.
So, what would you say this year, right?
Uh-huh.
So when you complete a game, right, there's a lot of trophy information that you get from various consoles, PC, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So when I say completed a game, right, I mean you beat it, right? So this isn't platinum trophies, or whatever. This is just, you got from the beginning of the game to the end of the game and whatever difficulty, whatever. So what would you say this year is the most completed game?
When you say most completed, like, so not platinum wise, but
not platinum, but actually finishing the story.
Let's see. I would probably say Solar Ash, which is a game that I played very recently. And I didn't. I mean, the game, that's another one. It didn't take me super long to get through it, but it was just such a joy.
Do you think that game's popular enough to be the most completed game of the year?
Oh, do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry. Like, not just me, but like everyone completed this game. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, like everybody, not just you.
Oh,
What's
okay.
your most complete? Oh, do you mean like most completed as in closest to 100%?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out, like, maybe
No,
I
meant
didn't
everyone.
get the platinum for it, but you felt compelled to spend as much time in this world as possible and see and experience as much as the game had to offer.
That's why I was confused when you said Solar Ash. I was like, is that popular enough to be the most completed game of the year?
If you're saying, yeah, the game that the most people completed,
yeah.
Well, I saw Wazin said probably maybe Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I think that a lot of people, yeah, it's a short enough game that it's easy enough to complete in a couple sittings. It's probably for a lot of people the game that they got with their PlayStation 5, Like, I would think more people would go for Spider-Man than maybe Demon Souls or.
Remember though, only on PS5.
That is also true. Is that it's only available on PS5, so.
And PS5s are hard to come by at the moment.
And not a lot of people have that. But the percentage of people that own a PS5 that also completed Spider-Man Miles Morales is probably pretty high, I would say.
Would you say it's higher than multi-platform games, though?
Well, let's see. What big multi-platform games? What were some of like the biggest releases this year? I don't know. I mean, like what, Halo? I don't know. Halo Infinite, did a lot of people complete that game yet? I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are playing it. Maybe
I think you can
maybe
discount
even
all of the games like FIFA 22 and Battlefield and stuff with just a multiplayer aspect, you know?
Yeah, it depends. I don't know what like the top selling games of the year were. You know, if I had to guess, like some of the top sellers like would be maybe even Diablo Resurrected. Like all the Blizzard shit aside, I think that probably sold pretty well when it released.
That's a hard game.
But how many people completed it though is the thing. I don't know.
That is a really hard game to complete. I mean, if you're talking about platinum, it's easy to do one run of a Diablo game, but to actually get up to
what about
max level
one that released, okay, so a Nintendo Switch game that I would think like most people would buy this year would be the Bowser's Fury you know, thing that came with Super Mario 3D World. And I think that if you are if you're gonna get that and you're gonna play Bowser's Fury, you're probably gonna not just complete it. Like, it's easy enough to complete, right? That you could probably see the ending of it within, I don't know, 3 to 5 hours. And then if you were going to 100% it, you'd get another 3 to 4 hours of gameplay out of it. So
I'm trying to steer you towards multi-platforms.
I know, but like
Nintendo Switch.
How many people got Assassin's Creed Valhalla and put in the amount of time that game requires for you to see the ending? I mean, that is a big fucking game, you know. Yeah. And that probably sold pretty well. And I saw the ending of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I also put in way more hours into that game that I feel comfortable admitting. About 100.
I can tell you.
Yeah, it was. I just said it. Yeah, but like, I feel like, you know, maybe a lot of people bought it and not a lot of people completed it. Like, what else? What other? What? You give me a bone. Throw me a bone. What do you think? What's your answer?
Well, I know the answer.
You know the answer. Okay.
I know the answer.
So there is a definitive answer to this question then.
There is a definitive answer, yeah. They came out with the most and least completed game, which we'll go through as well.
All right.
The most completed game, it is a multi-platform game.
Okay. Hold on. Let me think for 1 second.
I don't want to hear a clacking of keyboard there either.
No.
I'm looking
both
at you.
My hands are right here. No, I actually give up. I don't know. I have no idea. What was it?
Vampire Booba?
Of course. Resident Evil Village, of course. It's multi-platform. It's short, and it's good. It's actually enjoyable. Why wouldn't most people complete that game? Of course.
I thought to myself, I was like, that is like the perfect kind of game to result in that accolade at the end of a year, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's good, it's short, it's multi-platform, it sold really well. It's like, yeah. It's like, you think about the amount of copies that Assassin's Creed like sold, and it's just completely it's way too long for your casual consumer, right? It's
Yeah.
just way too long. Like, it's all right for us. Like, you know, the fact that we're doing a podcast and people in the chat that are listening to a podcast are already in the 1% of like interested gamers, let's say.
Yeah.
So the amount of, yeah, I mean, that's like the perfect game to go into that category, I think. But do you want to have a guess on the least completed game? Now, this obviously the thing of me trying to steer you to a multi-platform doesn't apply here because it's the least completed game, so it doesn't really matter if it's sold well or not.
And it released this year, so
This year, yeah.
that's gonna rule out like that's gonna rule out Demon Souls because that was 2020. What if I guessed Returnal?
Oh, he's got it.
That was it?
Got it.
That was
Yeah,
it?
you got
Hell
it.
yeah,
Well
I
done.
knew it. I knew
Yeah.
it. Oh, I'm so
Well
proud of
done.
myself for
I'm proud
completing
of
that
you.
game then. That's a good one.
Yeah, you completed it. Yeah, least completed game of the year. I mean,
Wow.
I'm sure there's a game out there that one person bought and didn't complete, which technically makes it the least completed game. But
Right.
I think this was from the data that they could collect. Returnal was the lowest because, like you've said before,
That's a
it's a very,
shame.
very difficult game.
It's very difficult, yes, and that definitely turns a lot of people off of it, and it's also for PlayStation 5, which, you know, is hard
I
enough to
think,
get.
right? Like
Mhm.
PlayStation 5 owners looking for a PlayStation 5 exclusive,
That's not
looking
the
at
game I'm looking
Returnal.
for.
Looking at Returnal, you can imagine your average Joe, right, in a game shop looking at the PS5 games and thinking, "Oh, okay, this game looks cool. It's got guns in it. It looks the graphics look cool," and then going home and then not really understanding the concept of a roguelike and
Yeah.
like, why whenever I die I go back to the start? This game is hard, and just not getting the game at all, you know,
Yeah.
and then just putting it down. So
That's a shame. That actually, you know, it makes me a little sad because it is definitely a wonderful game. Zub, if you get it, you better complete it. Become one of the 1% like me.
I'm gonna platinum it. Or platinum
Oh
it.
yeah, oh yeah. Good luck, man.
Yeah. I had a look at the thing the other day, how long to beat 100% like platinum,
Mm.
and I think it was something silly like 80 hours or something. I was like, oh god.
Yeah, that has a
Yeah.
thing where I think one of the trophies is like to find all the audio logs, basically.
And that's luck-based as well,
and
isn't
it's
it? 'Cause it's all
RNG
random.
whether like they can appear in certain rooms, which that room might not appear, and then they only have a certain percentage to spawn in that room, and so it's one of those things where it's like you just gotta kind of get lucky and
It was like that game, that roguelike game that I played not so long ago, The Pit. Do you remember that? And it was
Into the
like
Pit? Yeah,
Into the Pit, that was it.
yeah.
And there was journals to collect. It was the last achievement that I needed on the thing. I was like, yeah, well, this game is fun. You know, I can carry on looking for the journals. And it was exactly as Plushy said. There was certain rooms that would only spawn the journals in. Plus, they had a percentage chance of dropping in there as well. And it was just like, nah, forget that.
That's also
I ain't
how
going for that.
Neon Abyss worked as well, right? In order to, and that wasn't even with extra side shit. That was like to actually make progress in the main game, like in the main story.
If you haven't heard of Neon Abyss, it's actually free on Epic's Game Store now, so you can download it for free. And it is a roguelike, similar, sort of akin to like Bind of Isaac, but it's side scroller and it's all about guns, right? So you can get a gun that fires cats out of it, and you can have a gun that's like conventional rocket launcher, all this sort of stuff. It's all about the guns, and it's really, really fun. It's a really, really fun game. But like Plushy says, the progression of that game is just awful. It's like, so you go to different worlds, right? You're always looking for the exit, and then when you get to the end of the series of worlds in a run, you come up to your target, basically. You're the big boss, and you beat the boss, and then you go back to the start, like you do in a roguelike with persistent upgrades and whatnot, and then do it again with a different target and a different target. And I thought this is really fun, and the runs get longer every time, so they add another world every time. So that's quite hard, and it was quite a nice progression. And then it came to the point then where you were fighting Athena and Ares, and it was like two targets at the same time. And they have like a Paragon Renegade style mechanic in the game where if you it's basically purple and red, and if you do things like hurt yourself on purpose, and you know, it's kind of like a suicidal route, then you go more down the red path. And if you do things that are generally considered good, like opening purple crystals, doing things with these purple crystals, you go down the purple path. And the only way to fight these bosses, either the purple or the red boss, is to follow these paths down until you get until you fill a bar up. And once you fill the bar up, you can go to a secret room, either the purple secret room or the red secret room. And you go there, and it gives you an item, but there is a percentage chance of you getting a token, and you need that token to beat the boss or to actually attempt to fight him.
This is so complicated already.
So yeah, it's so complicated. And then you're in a run, right? You just want to get to the end where the boss is.
Yeah.
But instead, you've got these extra requirements to do, which you can mess up on with mistakes, or you can just have bad RNG and you'll never get this token in this room. So you can get all the way to the end of a half-an-hour run, doing really well with the best weapon setup that you've ever seen in your life. But then because of bad luck, or you made like a slight mistake, that's it, run over. You basically just have to restart. You just turn it off and restart. And I was like, that is such a bad way to make progression, make a progression system in your roguelike. Yeah, in a roguelike as well, where a run can just come to nothing because, you're
the thing didn't spawn. Yeah.
RNG.
Yeah,
the thing that you need didn't spawn. And it's like... Yeah. So, but anyway, I still think you should play it because it is fun.
It is a fun
once
game.
you get to that point,
and it's also pretty like easy going. I think like it's a difficult game, but it's like casual enough to just pick up and play for 20 minutes and then be done with it or whatever.
I actually got to the point where I beat those two bosses, and then it gave me 3 options then with an even more complicated way to actually get to these new bosses. So I was just like, forget this. Yeah, I'm done. But I had fun with it. It's free at the moment, so you may as well download it and just check it out for yourself if you like roguelikes.
Damn, Wazen got the platinum in Demon Souls. That is
damn,
that's impressive. That's one of those games where I got I've gotten the platinum in Bloodborne, but I've never platinumed any of the Dark Souls games. I didn't platinum Sekiro or anything like that. I feel like those games usually ask a lot out of you. Maybe Demon Souls doesn't ask quite as much, but I do think it requires pure white world tendency for a lot of the worlds, which is a weird mechanic that is built into Demon Souls that do you understand how world tendency works in Demon Souls?
No. You guys were trying to explain to me on stream yesterday, and I was like, okay. No, interesting. Yeah. I was like, I don't know what. But then you started using acronyms, which was really confusing.
I did? Oh.
I think it was you or Tondor. I can't remember.
Essentially what it means is, like, you can make the game harder on yourself, or you can make the game kind of open up new paths to like extra weapons or spells or whatever it might be. And the way it works is tied to your physical body. So, the Ember of Dark Souls 3 in this one is quite literally your physical body form. You'll have a full health bar when you're in that form. But if you die while you're in that form, whatever level you're in, the world tendency, so it starts off neutral. If you're in that world in body form and die, it will take away from the neutral state of that level, and you'll start to go more into the dark world tendency for it. So let's say you're having difficulty, you decide you want more health, so you're going to use body form to try to get through this level, and you die, and then you do it again, and you die again. Suddenly, you're going to start seeing extra enemies appear, invasions are going to happen more often, because you have now set the world tendency to dark. As opposed to that, if you are in neutral, you stay in ghost form, and you make it to a boss. You kill the boss, you get your body form back, and let's say, you go to the Nexus hub world and die there, and just keep yourself in ghost form for the majority of your playthrough. Basically, by the time that you kill all the bosses in any respective world, it's going to be pure white by the end of it. And that just means new paths are going to open up that weren't there in neutral and aren't there in dark form, and you'll find extra goodies and stuff like that. Yeah, if you die in the annex, never resummon your body and beat the game, all levels would be pure white. Exactly. So it's just essentially like if you get rewarded for playing through the entire game in soul form, as opposed to trying to give yourself a one-up over the game and beat it in body form and then die, and then, you know, the game's like, well, this is what you get for trying that, you know?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, but I feel like it's one of those things where, you know, you kind of need to experience that and kind of work that out for yourself, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas I can't do that because I'm on stream doing it, you know. So people are like pure white tendency and dark tendency, and I'm like, what the friggin' hell is going on? I don't know. But one interesting thing I found was that Demon Souls is one of the highest platinum trophy percentages out of all the games. 28%.
Wow.
28% of people with the platinum. That is really high.
Wow, that's impressive. That is impressive.
Yeah,
Maybe I should go back in and
profiles.
try to platinum it. I was playing it for a little bit on New Game Plus, and man, at least for me, I was like, it is like, it's not that it's like a completely different game on New Game Plus, but I was like, wow, this is challenging. I wasn't expecting, especially after beating it the first time, I didn't have too many points where I like hit a wall or anything like that, but I played that first boss, that blob guy that you fought, you know, yesterday, and he was giving me problems, and I beat him on the first try, like, you know, like most people. When you get to him, he's not very hard, but
fire bombs,
yeah. New Game Plus is no joke, though.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually. Hopefully, I can beat Elden Ring. Hopefully, I can beat Demon Souls, and then that'll give me some sort of like kind of, I don't know, baseline to be like, right, I'm gonna be a bit more excited for Elden Ring than I actually am right now, because right now I don't know, it doesn't really light a fire up my butt. So,
I'm excited. My excitement is contained pretty well, though, I think, because I think a lot of, you know, Souls fans are going crazy waiting for this game, and me, I'm just like, you know, it's gonna be. It's not that I have low expectations. I think that it's gonna come out and it's really gonna wow me. Especially like, you know, seeing it like on your own screen with your own eyes. Apparently, it looks better than Demon Souls. That's what I've heard. That it looks that good, and if that's true, that's impressive, because Demon Souls looks really good in my opinion.
It looks amazing. Like, honestly, it's I was quite shocked with it as well, and the fact that I'm using a capture card as well to do it means that, you know, my computer's not using any resources, so I don't have to knock down any settings or whatever. So, like, the fact that the PS5 can do that at 60 FPS and what it looks like is like a real big testament to these machines.
So, has it ignited that fire a little bit yet for you for Elden Ring? Are you a little more excited,
really, no.
or no?
Not really, but it's I'm at the start of the game. Like, hopefully, maybe I just need, I don't know, I think I need to get to the end of a game, like, and actually finish it, and then have that like bit of a journey with it, you know. Whereas all the other games that, like I said earlier, played for about a quarter to halfway through, you know, and there's not really enough time to get you you know, to actually go on that journey and finish that journey.
Yeah.
So I think I need to do it. I need to finish one bloody Soulsborne game, surely.
You got this. I believe in you. Or just finish.
But again, it's like
on stream.
It's not that. Yeah, it's not that, you know, the difficulty and whatnot. Like, I know I can beat these games eventually. But yeah, it's just something about it that it's just, I just get frustrated with the running back and all that. You know, like,
well, I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. It's more of an annoyance with those games than, and it takes away from the appreciation then of like the combat, the world, the, you know, things like that. So I just need to get that out of my head and just. I feel like if I'm streaming it, I'll have more things to do while I'm running back. You know, if you get down that run back to the boss, well, you know, and it's like second nature to you, at least then I can talk to chat, and you know, it'll be
Yeah.
it'll be a bit nicer for me. But then you've got the added pressure then of fighting a boss while loads of people are
When
watching
you
you
get
as well. It's like, oh,
when you get used
yeah.
to an area in a Souls style game, it actually does become a bit like you get comfortable with it, surprisingly. You know, they are, for a lot of people, like cozy, comfy experiences, going back to Dark Souls 1 and, you know, just running down well-known paths. It's like Tondor has said multiple times, like, imagine like fighting the enemies in a Dark Souls game. Like, we know these paths so well at this point that we can just run by everything and get to the boss.
And there's
like,
me fighting everything like a noob because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
need
on
souls. Oh.
on the first playthrough on any of those games too, I do the same thing.
Oh yeah, you will.
I take
be,
my
yeah, because you
time
don't
and
know it.
like
Yeah.
poke into every corner, and I want to immerse myself in the world and stuff like that. But eventually, you know, if you really like it, it can become like comfort food to you. Just there are people that all they do is, you know, stream or play things like Bloodborne or Dark Souls, and it just becomes like a cozy experience as opposed to a frustrating one. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Maybe
after Elden Ring. Maybe Elden Ring will be the spark that I need to start loving those games, because I got a lot to go back to.
Maybe, or honestly, I'll be honest. I think that if you're not into them by now, Elden Ring is not gonna. Yeah, Elden Ring's not gonna change your mind, in my opinion. I don't think so. But I mean, if you're into it, like I am, like I said, I'm very much looking forward to the game, but it is a contained excitement, as opposed to some of the super fans, because there is a passionate die-hard fan base for these games. You know, die hard, like, you know, because the games are hard and you die a lot in them. You see where I'm going with that?
Die hard, man.
Die hard, man. Yes, there we go. So we're coming up on 3 hours, and I think we should.
That went quick.
Yeah, it did actually. Some closing, I guess, remarks or questions. Like, what are you? I mean, we're obviously not going to be doing this next Saturday. Next Saturday is Christmas, so Merry Christmas, chat. Merry Christmas to you, Zubidub.
Merry Christmas.
What are the next couple games that you're going to be getting into? What are you going to be streaming? And yeah, what's on your plate for you know, the upcoming weeks?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna carry on with my PS5 preference at the moment. May as well make use of it and see what the thing can do. In terms of what I'm gonna play, I don't know. I've finished Spider-Man now, and I've got quite a few games installed, including God of War, which I never played. I've got Final Fantasy VII Remake, as we said earlier on. I've got Demon Souls. Cool. But I think I'm gonna leave Demon Souls for stream, so we can keep going with that. If I need to do anything off stream, then I can do that, no problem.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of thinking maybe I just go through Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
I think you should. It's a good one. I would like to like, if you play through it on your own, right? And then play through it again, okay, on hard mode on stream. That's something.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah,
that's something I would like to watch, because I think that it kind of sucks that you can't do hard mode right out the gate, but it also makes sense because of how it works.
Well, that is a hard mode, right? It takes away your ability to use items, right?
Yeah, you cannot use items at all. So that means you are absolutely 100% reliant on what is it, the Mako spheres? Is that what? I forget what they're called right now. Materia. You're 100% focused on that. Your characters need to be, you know, leveled up properly, and you really need to think about what you have equipped to who. You know, like, it changes the game entirely, and it turns it from more of it goes from just a straight up action experience that I think is pretty straightforward to actually being a JRPG thinky experience.
Mastermind.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
it's
And that's
pretty
not
cool.
me.
Yeah,
But
you say that, but
it'll
you
be
got
fun.
this.
It'll be fun. We've played quite a few hard games and hard modes
Yeah.
and things, and we get there in the end. That's the thing. That's the good thing about it.
Definitely. Cool.
Oh yeah. What about you, Plush? What are you thinking of playing over this Christmas period?
So on stream lately, I've been doing mostly retro stuff again. I'm gonna continue playing Soul Reaver, which I'll probably have more thoughts on it as we get further into the game, but it has been definitely an interesting experience. So I'll play a bit more of that throughout this week, and I'm almost done Heart of Darkness, so I'm gonna try to complete that next Friday. After that, I'm not really sure what I want to play live. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with retro stuff for a little bit, or maybe play. I was thinking about doing Firewatch as another like kind of palate cleanser style game.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah,
just get
that'd
through
be
it
one
in,
of
like,
those. Because you really liked Edith Finch, right?
Yeah, I did.
You did that recently, and I think Firewatch is of a similar ilk. It might be a nice, comfy stream.
Finch fit nicely into as like a one stream game. You just play through the whole thing in one sitting, and if you gotta stretch it a little bit longer than 3 hours, then do that. I think we beat it in like 2.5 hours though, but I think Firewatch is a little longer.
I think that's 6 to 8. I think. Well, maybe closer to 6.
I looked it up on how long to beat or whatever, and they said average is around 4.5 hours. So,
okay. All right.
But I don't think that was like a completionist thing. I'll check again, but yeah, I'm thinking about finally. I only hear good things about that game, so we'll see.
I'm so glad a game that I recommended to you in Edith Finch, you really, really liked. You really enjoyed it.
Oh, I really did enjoy it. Yeah.
I was like, yes, come on. I hate recommending a game and everyone, oh, it's crap, it's rubbish.
No, that was a fantastic game, and I'm not even really like big into the walking simulator style games. Like, they can tell great stories and look really interesting, but the fact of the matter is that they lack mechanics that make a video
There was that
game.
whole discussion when they first hit the scene, and it was like, is it a game? What is a game?
Yeah.
It's like a game has to have a failure state and all this sort of stuff. Walking simulators aren't game, they're interactive movies or whatever.
Yeah, and that debate is still alive and well, and I think a lot of walking simulator style games have adopted more mechanics. Like, again, the Gunk to me is coming across very much so an interactive like movie experience than a video game, but it's got lots of video game mechanics in it. It just doesn't expand on them in the ways that most video games would expand on them over the course of like a journey. But yeah, so but I mean, that was a great recommendation that fit perfectly into the schedule as a nice palate cleanser, and had a really good story. It was good. I liked it a lot. So yeah,
I'm glad, buddy.
I'm hoping that Firewatch has a similar kind of emotion running through it, and I'm sure it's gonna be good. In my free time though, I like to have my games that I stream, and then I have a couple games on the side that I play through. I plan on beating Halo Infinite at some point, but I'm just really not impressed with the campaign of it whatsoever. At first I was like, oh, maybe it's gonna get more interesting as it goes on, but it has failed to do that for me. So there's that. I'm suffering through it. Like I said, I'm gonna beat the Gunk. I'm going to attempt to beat Death's Gambit, although I'm now at the point in the game where the difficulty is really cranking itself up, so we'll see. And the last game that I purchased was a game called Eastward on Nintendo Switch, which is a game that's been on my radar for quite some time now, but I've just kind of been waiting on like a little price drop. It looks very much like a mix of Zelda and Earthbound, and it's got its own quirky little story to tell, and gorgeous pixel art with like tons of detail and stuff. So that's, I was looking for a game to play on Switch too, because it's but Switch gets the most, or I mean the least amount of love out of any of my gaming consoles, simply because I don't know, most multi-platform games you're gonna get it on another console. Exclusives are few and far between, but it does make for a good place to experience a lot of indie games, a lot of more slow paced games, or puzzle games I tend to play on Nintendo Switch. Anything that I think might be good to just kind of like
We were
lay in
saying
bed and
earlier,
relax.
like the Phoenix Wright games were really good for Switch.
Exactly.
The Professor Layton games, things like that.
Yeah.
If you're looking at, when they brought out Doom and things like that for Nintendo Switch, I'm like, I don't know why anybody would buy Doom for Nintendo Switch. I mean, that's just really not for me. And I think Nintendo Switch has its very own or very defined sort of games that are good for it.
Yeah.
Not only the exclusives, but some of the indies and things that you're talking about as well. And the fact that it's portable is great as well.
Oh,
you can play it in bed.
Hell yeah. Or play it on the pooper if that's your thing.
I am in and out on the pooper. I don't have time.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
I can't sit there in poo air for too long.
No, I'm the same way. But that's a perfect note to end the stream on. And I'm gonna shout you out really quick. Thank you so much again, for anyone who's chilled, hung out, chatted, or just listened to the VGB show. We will be back after Christmas, and with, I'm sure, lots more to talk about. We'll see what happens over the course of the next 2 weeks, and we'll try to stay on top of the latest video game news and tell you about what we've been playing and all that good stuff. So it's been a pleasure, and just a real good time. Before we go,
it's been awesome.
Let me see. There was a very special stream that was happening earlier. I don't know if it's still happening. Oh, no, it doesn't look like it is. That's a shame. Our good friend of the channel here, Kronos, was doing was doing a special Just Chatting stream where he made a glitter beard, or turned his beard into a work of art, essentially. Apparently it was glorious, but unfortunately he ended stream already. So I'll be honest, I don't really have a particular person to raid into or anything like that, so I think we're just gonna end tonight. But it's been a pleasure talking with you guys, and it's been a pleasure.
Been awesome, guys. Thank you very much, as always. Thank you, chatters. Thank you, Plushie. And if we don't speak to you now, I'm sure we speak to you through the week, but if we don't speak to you, then have a great Christmas.
Yep, and here's a spot where you can find both me and Zubby and chat with us off stream. That's my Discord. Join it if you're not there. And if you are there, I will talk to you later. Bye!
Peace out.